email account saying that everybody is
Okay, that's fine. I have a meeting at 7:30.
All right, student senate, if we'll go ahead and start finding our seats, please. I now call this meeting of the Kansas State University Student Governing Association Student Senate to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll now move into first roll call with Nathan.
Al Abdullah, Almadani, Beasley,
Here.
Belina,
Here.
Betancourt, Bond, Booz, Bowers, Brentsey, Burke, Carlson, Carr,
Here.
Clark, Clements, Coggeshall, Colisico, Cruz, Dowd, Frederick, Gallardo, Gillespie, Glasscock, Hamlin, Hines, Huffman, Jabin, Jonak, Kelly, Kerperin, Kidd, King, Koger, Kurzweil, Coleman, Lomshek, Lux, Matos, Meinhardt, Moore, Oxner, Orzakowski, Pelton, Payton, Phillips, Rodriguez, Reichert, Seidel, Slichter, Smith, Snyder Ben, Snyder Blaine, Spellman, Wallace, Ward Kelly, Ward Shalin, Watkins, Whitmer, and Zimmerman. And we have 39 senators present.
Right, with that, we'll move into first open period. Our first open period speaker this evening is Dean Kevin Gwinner, Dean of the College of Business.
Great. Well, thank you for allowing me to come and address this group. My first time, so very exciting to see all of you. What I thought I would do is give a quick update about some things that we're doing in the college, especially around our strategic plan. Run over a few of our key metrics that we have, and then, of course, open it up to questions that you all might have for me. Just a little bit about myself. So I've actually been here at K-State for quite a while. I joined the faculty in 1999. I'm a marketing professor and did that for a while, and then became the department head in marketing and was in that role for about 10 years. And then in 2015 is when I jumped into the dean's role and have been doing it since then. Really enjoy that work. It's a very, as you may know, the dean's role at K-State and at many universities is a very external role. So I get to engage with our alumni quite a bit, with other folks outside the college, but still at the university, and enjoy that to a large degree. So I've got my slide guy here. So we have a strategic plan in the college business, and our strategic plan has 8 planks that can be organized into 3 basic themes that you can see on this slide. So the first one is around student experiences, the reinventing student experiences around new programming, new ways to teach in the classroom, and then the engaging a global mindset has to do with expanding the international business education for our students, not only in our curriculum that we do on campus, but also thinking about ways to get students out into the world more, whether it be study abroad or other ways. The expanding external collaborations is our outreach to companies, and I'll talk a little bit about that later. But really, we're looking for more company engagement, more companies to come to K-State and hire our students as interns, as full-time employees, to engage in our classes. We're a very applied school in the College of Business, so we like to do a lot of applied projects. So we have companies come in, and oftentimes, if you're a business student, you'll actually be working on a project that a company might use as almost like a mini consultant in some of our senior level classes. We also do research in the College of Business. It's not the laboratory research or the field research that you see in some of the colleges here, but it's business research. So we do surveys, we do experiments, we publish our findings in academic journals, and we try to have an influence on practice, on business practice, whether it be in human resource practices or marketing practices or different ways to think about investing for our finance faculty, so a variety of research that we do. And then, if you come back just one point, is strengthening the foundations of the enterprise. So the planks here really have to do with our organizational culture. So we want to have a strong culture in the college. That's where our diversity and inclusion aspects of our strategic plan lie. We want to, of course, be a solid financial ground as a college, and so this involves, not only the new RCM model, but philanthropy and other forms of revenue that we can bring to the college. Of course, perhaps of a lot of interest to all of you is expanding recruitment, retention, graduation, and placement of our students. So that's a key plank in our strategic plan. And then we want to share all the great things that we're doing in different marketing initiatives. So we have a marketing and communications aspect to our strategic plan as well. So let me just touch on each of those three big themes with some examples. So in reinventing the student experience, we've been initiating a number of new programs recently. We have a master's degree in data analytics, which is a one-year on-campus master's degree, and we also have that in an online version. We started a professional selling degree about a year ago, so this is our newest degree. Started with 30 students and have doubled the number of majors that are in that program. We've had a certificate in that program for a long time. Certificates for us are like a minor, so it's 15 hours, 5 classes, and the students that complete that certificate have 100% job placement into a sales profession, and we're looking for similar results from those that major in that area. We're one of about 20 universities across the country that have a professional sales major. We've started a certificate in sports and entertainment marketing, and in April, as a matter of fact, I would invite you all to come and attend. We're doing a Women in Sports Business conference here on campus in the college, and a lot of interest around that area: sports marketing, sports business. Sports is kind of fun, right? It's kind of an exciting industry to get into, and so launching into a certificate initially, and we'll see where that runs if we end up doing a full major in that area. But that's new for us. And then a new program, a new center we've launched and stood up just this last year, the Center for Principal Business. Marcia Hornig is our new director. You may recognize that name. She ran the Snyder's Fellows program for a while. And this is a program with some great scholarshiping, some great programming around business practices, and then some research dollars that we can give out in research proposal types of ways to faculty all over the campus, not just in the business school. We've expanded our international trip opportunities. Not next week. We're not going anywhere next week. Unfortunately, I had to cancel some trips for next week. But as a whole, our college has been really active in expanding the opportunities for students. One of the really cool ones is our accounting program has been taking students to Australia. And the students ahead of time partner with students at a school in Australia on a case. And then when they get there, they work the case together as part of the entire experience while they're there. We've also expanded our tutoring hours. So we're up to 279 hours this past fall. And this is where we partner with the Academic Success Center here to do this. It's mostly in our quantitative courses that we find some students having some struggles with, and so we focused our tutoring efforts there. Phillips 66 partners with us on this. They provide $10,000 a year for us to run this program and allow us to expand it. In terms of expanding our external collaborations, really the first 5 bullet points here have to do with getting out in front of companies and bringing more companies back to campus, whether it's identifying and recognizing them through the Corporate Partners Recognition Program, where we started with about 45 companies last year, and this past year we recognized 55 companies. These are companies that have given over $2,500 to the College of Business. So we'll recognize them in a banquet, and then if you ever come into the atrium of the business building, you'll see a big stainless steel wall with all of their logos on them. We started to measure our corporations and when they come to campus, how they engage with us. Are they on our advisory councils? Do they sponsor projects? How many students do they hire, both interns and full-time jobs? How much do they give to the university? And have created, based on those metrics, an index of companies. So you can imagine that some companies, and we have close to 300 companies that hire our students every year. Some companies will be high on that index, some will be in the middle, and some will be on the low end. And so by creating an index and actually starting to measure it now, we're able to think about how do we move those that are on the low end to the medium end, and on the medium end to the high end, with the goal ultimately of bringing more companies to campus to hire our students and give them internship and full-time job opportunities. Let me skip down to some of the high-impact events. So that's one of the initiatives that we've had under our strategic plan is to bring more events to campus. We did an insurance panel with Greg Case and David Lockton. They're the CEOs of both of their companies are in the top 5 insurance companies in the world. And they were on campus. We've started a speaker series in finance that one of our alumni, Jeff Gates, is the sponsor for. I hope you all will be involved in our K-State launch competition. This is an idea pitch competition that's a campus-wide initiative. The best ideas usually come out of engineering and agriculture, and we have $20,000 in prize money that we give away as a part of that. We have a stock pitch competition where our students look at stocks that are in the market and either do a buy or a sell recommendation based on their analysis of that, again, some prize money from alum. And then we do an ethics business case competition that P66, Phillips 66 is a sponsor on, which gives a lot of students some insight into some gray areas of business where you might not know what's right, what's wrong, but we kind of help people walk through that a little bit. And then the third area of our strategic plan, where I'd like to share a few examples, is in strengthening the foundations. So we've started with really the initiative of SGA, an inclusion summit. We did our first one last year. We have another one coming up in April. The first one had a panel of diversity and inclusion officers from 4 different companies come and give a talk in our lecture hall, and then we adjourned from there out into the atrium where we had roundtables and further discussion. And we're planning a similar type of an event for the fall. We've tried to do more with high schools and community colleges as a college.
Time for the speaker has expired. Is there a motion to extend Caucus Leader Pelton?
I move to extend the speaker's time by 5 minutes.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to extend time for the speaker by 5 minutes. Are there any objections? Seeing none.
Thank you, Hannah. So the outreach to high schools and community colleges is all around recruitment. So as you may know, here at K-State, until just recently, really all of our recruiting efforts have been centralized at the university and not really pushed down into the colleges. And that's changed. Our new budget model has changed that to some extent. So we did a high school educator summit where we brought about 75 high school business educators to campus in the fall to talk about what we do here in the business college. And the goal is to make them into advocates for us, for them to talk to their students that are interested in going on to college and majoring in business, to think about K-State as opposed to some other institution. Similar program, we just did this last month with the community colleges, had a bunch of community college advisors again, with the goal of educating them about what we do in the business school and how we can make a seamless transition for students that transfer in from community colleges into the college. And then we have in our Career Development Center, we actually have I have 4 employees on my staff where their job title is career coach. And those 4 individuals work with our students to answer that big question of what do I want to do when I grow up, right? So you might know that you want to be in our college, but you don't know all of the different options, right? Marketing, accounting, finance, or maybe you know you want to be a finance major, but what are all the options that I could do in finance? So those individuals specialize in different disciplines, and then they work with our students to help them work through those questions. We have a really neat computer program we call Career Leader, or it's called Career Leader. It's kind of an aptitude test for business careers that we help people go through and then talk to them. And the goal is not to pick a job for people, for our students, but really to think about, all right, what are the pros and cons? What's it like to be a community banker in Topeka, Kansas versus an investment banker in New York City, both in terms of salary and lifestyle and job opportunities later on. So some key metrics. So our enrollment has been fairly flat. We've actually increased in our graduate students. So the university's declined in students, as you know, over the last 5 years. We had a dip this last year, but have been fairly flat over that same time frame. We look at credit hours. One of the things we're proud of is the number of credit hours that we maintain despite the drop of enrollment in the university. About a third of the credit hours that we teach, and we're teaching close to 60,000 credit hours, that's 20,000 students a year, come from non-business majors. So these are people taking our minor or people that have a course or two in their curriculum that they need to take or want to take out of the business curriculum. We've given out, or our students have earned, that's probably a better way to say it, over 750 students have earned each of the last 3 years degrees from our college, and that's a record for us. We've never had that level of graduations before. So it's, of course, an important metric. And they're graduating quicker. They're graduating on time. They're graduating at a rate faster than the average college rate. So we can see we started out pretty dismal. That 4-year graduation rate, if you're not familiar with that, is pretty horrendous across the entire nation. But we've moved to 47.7%, and I think the next slide is 6-year, up to 67.3% in terms of our 6-year graduation, which again is above the K-State average. Our students get jobs. Our undergraduate, this is a slide on undergraduates. Our undergraduate placement has been between 96 and 97% the last 3 years. Our starting average salary now is over $50,000. It was $51,000 this last year for business majors. A little bit higher in accounting and finance, a little bit lower in marketing and management, but on average $51,000. And then we've been trying to raise a lot of money for a variety of things. Our goal in the Innovation and Inspiration Campaign, which is a $1.4 billion campaign, my college's goal is $150 million. And I only have a few more months to make that goal. We're at $146 million. And so the campaign ends in June, so if anyone wants to give, you still have the time. I'm just $3 or $4 million short of my goal. But we've raised $36 million for student scholarships. A big part of it was the new building, which came online 3 years ago, $41 million for the new building, almost $60 million for academic programs, and $10 million for faculty and staff support. And then my final slide is just some rankings and some kudos, some brag points for us. AACSB is the accreditor of business schools nationwide. You may not know that only 5% of business schools nationwide are accredited. It's kind of the pinnacle of business education to be accredited, and we hold that accreditation. We've actually held it since 1973. Every 5 years it gets renewed, or we have an opportunity to renew it. Our Business Week, Bloomberg Business Week ranked our undergraduate program as the 39th best program in the country in their most recent rankings. And just this last month, U.S. News and World Report ranked our online MBA program as the 25th best program in the nation, the best program in Kansas, the best program in the Big 12, and number 11 among veterans. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Are there any questions for our speaker? Caucus Leader Kidd.
So you mentioned earlier that with the Call to Business, you have 4 career coaches. So with that in mind, how does Call to Business utilize the staff at the Career Center, aside from just like the fairs and stuff?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. So they work very closely together. So the Career Center, as you probably know, runs our all-university career fair. They handle the on-campus interviews, utilizing the handshake system, and we view our role more as getting students ready to succeed. So I mentioned the Career Coach program. Also in that Career Development Office is an Executive Mentor program. We have over 700 of our alumni that have volunteered to be mentors for our students. And then we do an 8-week, 0-credit-hour course called Career Accelerator, where we work on resumes, networking skills. We do mock interviews. We even do dining etiquette with them because so many interviews take place over meals. really to get our students ready. What we learned about 4 or 5 years ago from our employers is that the students down the river, down in Lawrence, were more polished than our business students were. Their business students were. That was the feedback we got. And so we initiated an initiative to put polish on our graduates. And I think it's worked, as you can see by the placement rates.
Further questions for our speaker? Intern Phillips.
Yeah, so I transferred into the College of Business this year, and I just thought that like the way that you declare your major was just different. You know, the 45 credit hours till you declare your major. Could you just talk a little bit about like what you think about that and how like I guess the effect that it has starting your major later rather than just declaring it right away?
Yeah, so it'd be interesting to get your perspective on that maybe offline a little bit. That's kind of a holdover from when I started back in '99. So why do we do it? I don't really know. Is it good? You don't think so. So maybe it's, oh, you do like it. Okay, I thought you were saying maybe it's not the best way to do it. So what I think is, here's what I think, is that when you're a finance major and you think you're going to be a finance major. So my son's a freshman here, and he thinks he's going to be a finance major, but he won't get to declare until 45 hours. But everyone he talks to, he's a finance major, right? So I don't know that there's that much of a distinction. On paper, you don't declare until you're 45, and you have the number of hours. But in general, I think you still get an advisor in the college. You hopefully join our student organizations. We consider you a part of that major, even though technically you're not one.
Any further questions? Senator Beasley.
Yeah. So I'm not sure if Marcus got to this, but thank you for coming. So one of the planks you mentioned is how you are reinventing education and you listed many exciting new programs and majors. What training do you provide to professors to prepare them for participating in your initiative?
Yeah, so there's a variety of things. So for our faculty, part of AACSB accreditation, one of the things that they look at are faculty qualifications. There's both initial qualifications, which might be fulfilled by having a PhD or for our instructors having a master's degree. And then there's ongoing qualifications. So what we want to make sure is that we don't get a faculty member coming in with say a finance PhD and then never doing anything else to keep current in that field. And so to keep current in that field, we have standards in place. There's a variety of activities, professional development, and other things that you can engage in order to maintain your currency. Some of it's around research, some of it's around training, to be, know what you're talking about in the classroom, to be quite frank. So we do it. So that's one aspect of it. And then just part of that, we encourage our faculty and staff to go around to on the pedagogical side. So not their content area, but more how do you teach a class? What are the best practices and the new nuances, new technology? We encourage faculty to go to conferences. We pay for some of that. There's some free things here on campus that they can attend. And then about 2 years ago, we hired an instructional designer in the College of Business, Ben Ward, to help faculty not only with courses that are taught online to online students, but also, as you know, many of our courses have a Canvas component to them, and so to make sure that that's well done. And in doing that, Ben provides training on that pedagogical side.
Excellent, thank you.
Senator King.
Yeah, thank you very much for coming tonight. I just kind of was wanting to ask a little bit about what the business school's response and kind of the steps forward that they were taking in the wake of the poster that was placed on one of the computers in the business school. So just kind of your take on that.
Sure.
About the coronavirus poster that was placed on one.
Yeah.
That's also time for questions.
Time for questions has expired. Senator Koger.
I move to extend the speaker's time 5 minutes.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to extend time for questions by 5 minutes. Are there any objections?
Yeah, I was pretty sure I knew which poster you were talking about. That's the only poster that I'm aware of. So we had I think just in case someone doesn't know what went on, we had one of our IT staff, turned out to be a student worker, go and put a sign on an out-of-order computer to let people know that it was out of order, and they thought that they would be humorous in that attempt, and I think the sign said something to the effect of, this computer's out of order, it has contracted the coronavirus. So we were informed of that, we removed the sign, and we educated our IT staff about the implications for that.
Further questions? Senator Phillips.
So I know a lot of students are concerned about like just affordability and stuff with tuition rising and privilege fee rising. I know you received the resolution that came through Senate, and I was just wondering, like, what's your response to that?
Sure. So if you wouldn't mind, I'd like to address it a couple different ways. One is on the affordability side. So we're as you can imagine, as not only faculty but administrators, hypersensitive to the affordability aspect, especially in a situation where we've got declining enrollment and affordability being a key component of that. One of the efforts we're trying to do to combat that is to raise more money for scholarships, and not just merit-based scholarships, but need-based scholarships, which is really where I think a lot of the affordability component comes in. In my college, we every year we give out about $1.4 million in scholarships to continuing students. So that's one of the things that we're doing to address affordability. I really appreciated the resolution on, and I don't know if you had a term for those things, but you were talking about clickers and Connect, or different things where you basically show up at your class and you weren't aware that there was going to be an additional charge, and you're surprised. And we recognize that's a problem. So the steps that we took was to take the resolution and distribute it out to we have 4 departments in the college, to give it to the department heads, and ask the department heads to, in their next faculty meeting, have a discussion with the faculty about the resolution. So first of all, I'm not sure that all faculty realize that this is a concern of students. So that's one thing that I think that the resolution helps, is to make that very much aware that that's a concern. And then we ask them, as they think about these types of additional things that you might require students to purchase, to really be sure that there's a legitimate educational purpose behind it that can't be achieved in some other way. To that end, I mentioned Ben Ward a few minutes ago. Ben, our instructional designer, we held this last week, I think it was, we held a workshop for faculty on how to use some of the features in Canvas to accomplish some of the things for free that they might be requiring students to pay for now. For example, taking attendance with a clicker that might be able to be accomplished in another way. So that's how we've addressed it, and I'm not sure yet. It's kind of in the process what will ultimately come of it, but we did take it seriously. We shared it with our departments, and as dean, I asked our faculty to consider it.
All right. Any further questions? All right. Seeing none, thank you so much for coming today.
Appreciate it.
Our next open period speaker tonight is Jeannie Brown Leonard, Vice Provost for Student Success.
Dean Gwinner is taller than I am. There we go. Hi. I am so happy to be here. I'm officially, this is my start of my 3rd month, so I've been here 2 months. I shifted from counting my weeks on campus to months just at the start of this week. So I still feel a little bit like a newbie, and I am still learning a lot. But I am delighted to be here and was pleased to be invited to come before you. I don't have a formal presentation. In part, I think it was day 3, Nathan, when you reached out to me and said, would you come before this body? And I said, sure, but I'm not sure what this is going to look like. So this vision, this idea of where we're headed in the student success world is still emerging, still evolving, but it's so critical that students have a voice in that process. So one of my goals today is to actually ask you some questions and to have a dialogue in our time together. But to just frame it a little bit, I am keenly interested in this work largely because I believe that this higher education journey that you all are on is a transformative one. My role actually spans both the undergraduate and graduate student spheres, so I'm excited to be connected with our students and our faculty in both of those areas. And as you might know, through the strategic enrollment management work that we've done, shorthand SEM, we are thinking about and reinventing this sort of student life cycle, thinking about what happens to our students at the point of interest as prospective students all the way through their college careers and becoming productive, fabulous alumni for this great institution. So there is a connectedness and an intentional integration happening that makes this place special and makes the work that we have before us both ambitious. There's a lot to do, but it's got the promise, I think, to be really meaningful and transformative, as I said, to those of you who are here. So know that that's in place, and we are working through trying to make data-driven decisions, trying to make sure that we are addressing the needs that you all have before you. So this idea of student success, I'm going to just also posit one more little detail before I open it up to find out what you think this means. We often talk in those initial data points, actually, that Dean Gwinner mentioned about persistence and graduation and those 4-year and 6-year graduation rates. Those are the common metrics that we use to think about student success, that my job really is to make those better and stronger over time. And I do agree that that's part of the picture. Those are very important data points, but I would argue those are measures of institutional success. And then in fact, student success means so much more. So it matters that you feel like you belong here. It matters that the kinds of success rates that we have aren't differentiated by whether or not you're a first-generation college student, whether or not you're on financial aid, whether or not you come from an underrepresented group on campus, whether or not you're an adult returning student, right? All these variables, we should make it possible for everyone to grow and thrive and excel. But there are other pieces of that puzzle, and that's, I have my ideas, but my key first question for all of you is to help me think about how we should be defining student success. What should we be thinking about? What should we be measuring? Put it out there.
We're gonna say like you don't need to be called on. So
Just jump in.
I think
Max.
retention is really important, and I know that's probably already a focus of yours, but in the graduate student realm, making sure that no student gets left behind, especially international students that might have a project run out of funding and then they're more or less stuck here.
So retention and persistence, being able to make progress towards your goals. And I would argue that, again, that's a measure that is a data point of whether you come back. But the reason you come back is because you have the funding, it's because you feel like you have a role to play, right? That there's some sense of connection to the work that you're doing. Great. Awesome.
To like the connection thing, I was going to say community membership, like feeling like there is a community that exists and also that you're welcome or part of it.
Excellent. Other thoughts? Yeah.
It's a very broad topic, but I would say civic engagement. Civic engagement can mean voter registration and voting, but also meaning being involved in your community, whether that's the K-State community or the Manhattan community, Kansas community, etc.
I love that. And I think one of the things we don't talk about as much as we should is this notion of the public good. I would argue higher education is a public good. It's not just a private good, right? Private good means you got a good placement rate, you got a good job afterwards. And those things are important, don't get me wrong. But there's also this broader sense of purpose that higher education was designed to educate a citizenry, right? And help you be a productive participant in that space. Great.
I think going off of involvement, just to kind of expand on that a little bit more, I think it'd be, for me personally, I think it'd be nice to examine the involvement piece. So, you know, we're all in Senate, but we're all probably in a lot of other student organizations. So what does that look like when it's stacked? So my involvement with Senate plus Graduate Student Council plus whatever else, like what does that look like and how does that pertain to my like profile as a student with my performance? Yeah, I may have the best grades, but I'm bomb involved in whatnot. So, you know, that sort of thing. That makes sense.
Yeah, I'd be interested to think if we have a, so we talk a lot in higher education about meeting students where they are and providing an individualized, kind of customized approach. It's not one size fits all, right? And yet curricula, majors are kind of, there's a set of things you have to do. But the way in which you approach them and the way in which you think about your entire kind of educational arc can vary. And again, the idea is you don't get your degree by those points of involvement, right? You have to be successful in your classes. But I would argue there's a synergy there, right? The things you do outside the classroom, especially in graduate work, where there's a praxis, right? The theory to practice connection. So if you don't have the involvement or the practical piece, you make meaning differently in the classroom. So there's a lot of research that says that if you're connected and you're engaged and you're a part of things, and maybe that's I like that word stacked, maybe it's an intentional trajectory. And with the people who are here to support you, we can help you design those pathways, those journeys through your educational adventure and get those experiences in that just-in-time way. And some of that's going to be civic involvement, some of it might be study abroad, it might be internships, but there's a whole set of what we call high-impact practices in higher education that we know make a difference in whether a student persists and makes it through to graduation. Yeah, stacked, I like that. I'm taking notes, just so you know.
I would just say another thing about like student success is the advising that goes on, especially early on in a student's career here at K-State, because that's when students are making obviously so many important decisions. And I know that it's kind of been fractured in a way that some colleges are really good at it and some really aren't. And so I think like making that a consistent thing across campus would be good.
So I think you've just named a strategy, right? So advising helps you get there, but I wouldn't say. So I think advisors help you in creating your success or in you creating your success. I don't know, and yes, so my portfolio, if you will, includes a number of student services offices and other what I call my challenge and support units that are here to help students who need additional guidance. So that includes academic coaching. It might be through some of our TRIO programs, the tutoring that we do, but also academic challenge programs, things through K-State First and honors and undergraduate research, et cetera. But I also have some responsibility for academic advising. And I work really closely with the colleges. I'm going college to college to college to get more information and insight. And the Huron research out of the SEM was really just exactly what you said. It's inconsistent. The experience our students have varied depending upon the college that they're in. And my charge has been to remedy that. So how do we build excellence in advising across the university? Part of that is to make sure we have shared expectations about what advising should be. It's not transactional anymore. It's not here are your classes, good luck, have a good day. It's far more holistic and more intentional. And I'm actually agnostic about who should do advising, right? I think peers can actually be good advisors. I think faculty can be good advisors. But we are also the home of NACADA, which is the global community on advising, which helps us know that there is a place called for a primary role advisor, someone for whom this is their career and their passion. And we have lots of evidence that can be very, very effective. So one of my responsibilities will be to try to create some consistency across that delivery model and to integrate technology as a way of helping us in that space too. So the provost has said that's my first job. So I was telling some graduate directors today that please don't worry, I'm paying attention to graduate education too, but graduate advising is a very different animal. So I'll be listing a little bit to one side and focusing on the undergraduate side, at least initially, to work on that. Because I agree with you, and the literature supports it, that academic advising relationship can be fundamental, which allows, let me just say that the next question for me was, are there key strengths here at K-State or key barriers that you think I should know about? So in a way, your comment on advising takes us into that space. What's student success? That question's still out there if you have a thought on that. But what are the things we can build on? The things that you go, this is why I love K-State, and don't ever tamper with this, Jeannie, because that would really make me sad. Or, this is a frustration that I see over and over again. The resolution around Top Hat and other pieces, that's a clear communication. We do not want to have hidden costs. So that's a barrier that we need to overcome. So strengths, barriers, and that student success question still out there.
So something for me is just the resources that are available on campus and how aware people are of those resources and how to utilize them. as well as where those resources come from, how they're funded. Many of them come from student dollars, and I don't think a lot of students know that. And so I think that there would be more conversation about, things like mental health, et cetera, if students knew where those things came from.
That's a perennial challenge, isn't it? It's how do we communicate better? It is, and I think there have been student voices in the conversation around. At least one of the recommendations was to create a Canvas page, right, where students kind of go to Canvas, and we're actually piloting that right now, trying to create a way to make that happen. The tricky thing is that I think we also have a history of trying to solve problems that are before us without pulling the lens back and thinking about the system, right? Thinking about how do we make a change that doesn't just, this may date me, but there's like this game in arcades called Whack-A-Mole, right? Where yeah, okay, good. So you hit one down, another one pops up. And so we have a tendency, and this is not just K-State, this is sort of large bureaucratic organizational challenge, where we solve a problem and forget that it's linked, it's connected to another set of problems. So with STEM, what we're trying to do is pull back that lens and think about those interconnections. And again, I think it's really powerful, but it's hard because as we learn, I was just in a conversation with the dean of the engineering school about a set of resources for first generation students. I said, so in what ways are you connected with our Office of First Generation Students? And do they even know what this opportunity looks like? And can we work together to provide those peer mentoring resources? So it's not who you know that helps you figure out what's possible, that it's visible, it's transparent, it's out there for everyone to see. So if you have that, I feel like those competitions that Dean Gwenner talked about in terms of launching ideas and special opportunities, I feel like we should do that in the student success space. Like there's no silver bullet, let's be clear about that. It still takes a lot of work to get through college, but what are the ways we can communicate better and make sure that we get the word out? So I love that point. I don't have a solution yet, but we're working on a few things. Great.
I think K-State strength is shared governance with students and putting emphasis on making sure that students are always at the table when decisions are being made. And that's something I've been very happy with, but I'm also highly encouraged to continue.
Excellent.
I think it's very valuable, and we see in our fellow student leaders at other Big 12 institutions that their voice isn't as prioritized, and I think it's been very valuable to see how ours is and that we think it still should be.
I would completely agree, and your reputation does precede you actually as a body, and not just their current students, but our graduates. Right, this is a very powerful set of alumni, and by powerful I don't mean like to have lots of money, although that's part of it because they donate generously, but powerful in that they're proud. They're very deeply connected to their undergraduate experience here or their graduate experience here. One of the reasons I'm before you and was really excited about this position is a really dear friend of mine, was a faculty member, colleague of mine at my other institution, and she did her undergrad and master's here at K-State, and she took me on a walk. And she told me the stories, and I fell in love. So there's a really proud alumni base as well, which is terrific. Wonderful. Yes.
This is like talked about all the time, but our community, that's in like pretty much all of our promotionals. We're a family, and for me, it's really true because I've been part of the K-State family my entire life. But I think that like not just like how students interact with each other and how faculty interact, but like just all the opportunities we have within our community. Like we have so many clubs, we have so many different organizations, and I feel like everyone can kind of find something that they're interested in, which I think is a really nice strength to have.
Do you think that all members of our community see themselves reflected in those opportunities?
I think that like we definitely still have like work to do in some aspects, and I think that there are opportunities there. We just need to be better about like presenting them. And I might have a little bit like of a skewed view just because my mom works on campus, so I've been here my entire life, and I'm from different way of seeing the community, I guess. But I do think that we do have a little bit of work to do, but we have like a really strong community still.
Excellent. I would also agree with you on that. And it's when I meet students across campus, and if I see you and I don't recognize you, please don't hesitate to say hello. And I often will ask this question: Tell me your K-State story. Tell me what brought you here. And I have heard these fascinating stories. Some very much like what you just described of being, this was a part of their childhood. They maybe not from Manhattan, but they've come back for events and for athletic events or for camps, what have you. And interestingly, some said that was originally a point of comfort, like they wanted to be here. Others said, so I resisted it because it's what my family expected of me and I didn't want to do that. And then they ultimately came back. So there's the continuum of engagement and story of how people got here and what meaning they make of their time here is as diverse as the people who are here. It's fabulous. And the more I hear those stories, because hearts and minds are really swayed by stories, by narrative. I'm a data person, but I would argue data are not just numbers. Data are also stories. They're narrative. There's a qualitative piece to that as well. And the more we can tap into that, the better equipped we are to see what is the secret sauce? What is the piece here that really makes a difference, right? And a student being able to thrive in our community. I haven't heard this phrase well-being yet in this group. I don't know whether that well-being language resonates with you, but if you think about these broad pillars, that sense of purpose, that sense of having a sense of where you're headed and what you're doing, being financially secure, being healthy, right, physically, a part of things, that social aspect and the community aspect, those well-being pillars have some resonance across that may become an organizing principle going forward so that we can communicate opportunities in a successful way. It's all emerging, but it's also I'm reminded of that the story, the narrative, what brought people here helps me figure out what matters to them and what needs to be included in the conversation. Yeah.
Yeah, I think kind of echoing off what Sadie was saying about kind of our strengths are that like we do have a lot of voice and a lot of shared governance, but I think also something that we need to consider and like continue is that like making sure that like administrators and people who are like making these decisions on behalf of students, that like that dialogue coming back to this body and giving us just even a simple update along the path of that kind of objective is really important to students as they care about where their dollars are going.
I think that's a great idea, and if you would have me back at some point, I'd love to come back and join you. I'm trying to create some models for decision making. So think about this advising space, for example. Right now, we're integrating what's called the Student Success Collaborative Navigate into advising practice, and there are some challenges we had when it was first implemented. We haven't done the data part quite right, so we're kind of revisiting some decisions. And I sat in a committee meeting and I said, and so I'd like to think about these decisions we're making and then bring them to the advising community and get their input and have them debate it. And I got this funny look, and they said, that would be a change. Usually we'd make the decision and we would tell people what we've done. And I said, yeah, that's not how I operate. That doesn't make any sense. You can't make a good decision when we're 2 steps removed from the people it affects, right? So it's slower. It's a much slower decision-making process. It's collaborative, but I think we get to a better decision in the long run. So I would welcome your thoughts on where we get that student voice in those spaces. You're busy people, there's lots going on, but if we could, again, make it more, not just a show and tell, but here's what we're wrestling with, this is what we're thinking about, what do you think? I would really welcome those opportunities. That would make a big difference.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So talking about like valuing the education you receive here and seeing you're like gaining something of worth from it. I think a lot of that comes down to while you're in the classroom, like having a respect for the learning that you're doing. And I think that starts with the professors themselves, having a respect for the students and also the content and materials they're teaching. Because I've often had professors who will like talk down the what materials they're teaching from, or Canvas, or just the content, and I'm not really, that disengages me immediately from the classroom and from the class in its entirety from that point on. And
Time.
just, so like,
Time for questions and the speaker we're kind of doing it together, has expired. Is there a motion to extend? Senator King.
Move we extend the speaker's time by 5 minutes.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to extend time for the speaker by 5 minutes. Are there any objections? Seeing none.
so, what I would like to see is, compassion training, but also like pedagogical training, like, what Dean Winter. I'm so sorry. He's not even here, but, what he had said about how there are professors in the College of Business that receive training. Is that a already existing thing across all colleges that they receive, teaching training?
That's a great question. Yes, the kind of attitude and affective presence of that faculty member can make a huge difference. I would argue faculty are our single most important student success lever, right? Because they're with you on a sustained basis. They can be aware of any changes, attendance patterns, all those kinds of things. But ironically, when faculty go through doctoral programs, learning to teach is not part of the curriculum, right? So they often replicate what it is they experience in the classroom. And we have a lot of movements. There are some future faculty kinds of programs that are meant to support in the graduate student stage opportunities to get that pedagogical training. It is very much of a self-selected opportunity. So having leaders like Dean Gwinner are critical. He's done a couple of things that I'm aware of that make a huge difference. One is he's asked his faculty to participate in something we call progress reports, which helps understand whether students are struggling and in what ways. And he says this is not optional. Like faculty, this is a part of our culture and you're going to do this. And they do it. And so deans need to be in that space saying, no, being an active, thinking about teaching in an active way, not a passive way, using best practices. There's a whole scholarship of teaching and learning out there, and we do have a Center for Teaching and Learning that helps to support that growth and development, but there is still an unevenness across the university. You may be aware that faculty have sort of a triumvirate they have to work on, right? They're thinking about teaching and research and service. Those are the three pillars of tenure, and research is king in those three. We do have some teaching faculty for which teaching is king, so that's awesome. But the service is what often gets shortchanged in that three-pronged stool, if you will. But I think there's an awareness now that faculty need to be a part of the student success experience for their students, and they want to be good teachers, right? It does not serve them well to go into the classroom and just read from yellowed notes from 20 years ago, right? That they are expected to keep current, that they are expected to be, and some are better at it than others. Your teaching evaluations are read, so use those, but you should also recognize that it's going to not be perfect across the board, just that again, it's a very, it's just a hard thing to harness. If you've heard the metaphor herding cats, that's the phrase we use to talk about faculty. And yet they're wonderful. Seek that person out, even the person who doesn't motivate you during office hours. By the way, I think office hours should be called student hours because it's for students, right? This is not my idea. This is an op-ed in the Chronicle of Higher Education. It was as a way of making it accessible. So call it student hours. Go in and have that conversation. During the class, it's awkward to say, I'm not motivated in your class. That might have to happen afterwards. But it could be a way for you to show interest, and then if you show interest in the faculty member shows interest in you. They're humans, they're people. And so we have to demystify this sage on the stage, right, and make that person more accessible. So short answer to your question is yes, there are training opportunities available. Different department heads and deans do it differently, and it's still uneven at this point. But yes, and I would be working a lot with faculty to try to encourage them to be more engaged with their students. Great point.
Something I was just going to add really fast, sorry, was just from both the student side and like the faculty staff side. It's interesting considering some of the processes that K-State has in place for students to do we'll just do things. So, for example, it's like when a student wants to change their major. I know with the College of Education, we have a really good practice of like meeting with them to assess, okay, why do you want to change your major? Is it just because you got a B in that one class? Like, it's okay, a lot of people get Bs or whatever, you know? versus the student that's like struggling and it's like, yeah, maybe you should actually change your major. But what I'm talking about is like the specific paperwork process of involved of that, you guys know what I'm talking about, that sheet that has like 5 copies. You gotta take it to one place for them to sign off on it, and then they rip you off a copy. Then you gotta take it back to the other place for them to rip you off a copy, and then you gotta take it somewhere else. And I get the paperwork side for like tracking. It just seems like it's what year, 2020, and it's it's the same as when I was a student, like years ago. So just for you to put into your notes.
Yes, the barrier. That would be a barrier. Our antiquated, yes, our new registrar is all about creating some dynamic forms, making that a much more contemporary process. We don't want to be part of like making this a pinball machine where you're ricocheted from one part of campus to the other to get a simple task done. That does not support your well-being, I would argue, going forward. So yes, let's work on some of those.
Thank you.
Time for the speaker has expired. Is there a motion to extend? Caucus Leader Spelman.
I move to extend the speaker's time by 5 minutes.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to extend time for the speaker by 5 minutes. Are there any objections? Seeing none.
Getting good notes. This is awesome. Thank you so much.
The trend that I continually see here at campus is that we provide students all these opportunities, and we keep saying that we need to make students more and more aware. I think that we do a great job of making students aware of what these opportunities are, but it takes 2 to dance, and it's something that would define success for me is the initiative of a student to get involved, to take hold of these opportunities, And so I think placing some incentive or creating some awareness that by getting involved in these opportunities would make you better in your field, especially if you got involved with things that directly relate to your field of work.
I think you highlight a really important tension that is in the student success space in particular. And there are sort of two tensions I want to point out to you. One is doing for students or having students do for themselves, right? So at no point do we think we should be a concierge service and just lift here, have room service and deliver these things right to your plate, whatever that looks like. It should be indeed the student should have agency and be an actor in all of this. So the notion of coddling or hand-holding and some of these things get talked about is not the direction I think we're headed at K-State by any means. But even if we were, I would argue that we have to be aware that there's a different level of social capital depending on who you are and what you bring to the campus. So I talk about being a novice at something and then becoming more expert. And I think when you're a novice, a little more support and a little more hand-holding, for lack of a better term, actually has merit. And then you teach the way. So it's a teaching function as opposed to a doing for them function. And the other tension was, Marcus hit on this a little bit, this idea of so what is our student success philosophy, right? So I'm hearing 2 things when I'm out there on campus. One is if a student doesn't do well or has a problem, let's say gets that B or gets that C or gets that D, is the response to say, okay, go back and do something that's less difficult or get some preparation better or change your major because this isn't the thing for you. So sort of a eject button approach versus what can we do to help you be successful in this path that you've chosen? And I fall in that second camp for the most part, but there are times, absolutely, when a student doesn't have either their math background wasn't strong enough to get through calculus and having a chance to go back and take pre-calculus is a good thing, but that can't be just an assumption based on the first exam, right? There needs to be conversation. There needs to be some engagement around that. And I think we're not fully aligned across campus on whether the right answer is to counsel someone out of a path versus giving them the support to be successful in that path and learning what that looks like going forward. But again, we have to have the resources. We have to have the right kind of culture. I would argue a culture of exploration is one that allows us the most flexibility. Are you aware of the interest areas that are now on the website for students or anybody who comes to the K-State website can go to a college, can go to a major, or you can look at one of 16, I think, interest areas. And the idea behind that is to help demystify the way colleges work at the university. And if you have an interest, even if you think it's business, if you go into the business theme, you're going to find things in the College of Business, but you're also going to find things in agriculture and other parts of the curriculum. And so it opens up the possibilities for that area of interest. And I think that, and the literature calls those meta majors, right? These things that are not, they're above the organizational structure, but have this content similarity. And again, if we can encourage people, even who think they know exactly what they want to do, to answer the question, why? Or what brings you here? Or how did you come to this decision? I don't know. My dad thought I should be an engineer, so that's why I chose this major, right? I've heard that a lot. Or I heard doctors make a lot of money. Or I want to help people. And those things apply to hundreds of majors and hundreds of career fields, right? So the Career Center gets it. Advisors, I think, get it. But it'll take a while to get to the point. Society doesn't get it, that's for sure, right? What question are you asked first when someone meets you? Oh, you're at K-State, great, what's your major? Right? We focus in on those declarations and those areas, and that's, and if you know what you want, and you've known since you were 2, and you've always been taking apart things, and that's why you want to be a mechanical engineer, you probably are in a good spot. But a lot of people haven't done that and haven't figured it out. So Erickson would call that foreclosure. If you commit to something before you've investigated possibilities, and that foreclosure can sometimes lead to a crisis, right? Because you're not actually in the path that works for you. Yeah.
That's time. Did anybody have anything final to add? Or we can get an extension as well. Yeah.
So, question time, I guess.
Sure, we'll move into formal questions if that's okay. Yeah. Coordinator Colburn.
So I really enjoyed this conversation, and I bet a lot of people in this room did too. What other opportunities exist for students to be involved in like your portfolio? So student success, where do you want to see more student involvement in opportunities that already exist, or where is there room for students and student government to make more room for students in the student success conversation?
Great. I wish I had a really nice, succinct answer to that question, but I'm seeking that. So I don't even have my team organized well yet. So I have these boxes of people that report up through me, and we haven't sort of figured out how we gel as a team. My unit is called the Office of Student Success, but we're offices. We're really a network. I need students to consult with me on what language can we use to make meaning of this. We have a University Success Center in Holton Hall, which is really just a branding to bring some really well-intentioned and strong units together. Some of that's student life, some of that's student success. The good news is we're blurring those boundaries. It doesn't really matter what unit someone's in. So yes, we've got to find places for student voice. I'm imagining we will have some more formal projects, and with those projects, there'd be committee membership to participate. That's one space. I would love to use this body as a sounding board going forward. And if you have friends at other institutions, or you have a brainstorm and an idea, I'm over in Holton Hall, room 102. Right now, I don't even have a support staff, so sometimes you can get in, sometimes you can't. If I'm not there, it ends up being locked. But leave messages. Brown Leonard is the first part of my email. I accept emails, send me emails. So I'm struggling with that. I would really like to figure that out. I realize when I go across campus and I see students, and I'm really famous for giving eye contact and saying hello to people, which isn't disarming here, I'm happy to say. When I lived outside of DC, people were like, what? Like, what are you talking about? Like, you look at me? Are you saying hi to me? Because you just have a different culture here, I think. So feel free to stop me if you see me on campus. If there's groups that you're a part of that you think have a particular interest in a particular part of things we've talked about tonight and want to invite me to those conversations, I would welcome that. So yes, not quite sure what that looks like yet, but there will be opportunities. Thank you.
Any further questions? Caucus Leader Sputman.
Dr. Brown Leonard, I am so excited to have you here tonight. So thank you so much for coming. My question is part explanation, part kind of flipping the script on what you had originally asked us. I am very interested in voting and voter registration at K-State. In 2016, 45% of students voted. In 2018, 36% of students voted. Both were increases from the previous either presidential or midterm election. I was interested to hear your perspective on civic engagement, kind of the nonpartisan voting culture, based off of what you've seen so far, and looking ahead to 2020, how you plan on increasing those members even more than they already have?
I do have a member of my team working with, and maybe it's you. Are you doing this one? So Luke is the person putting the connections together. Love it. So I need Luke to keep me informed on the progress that you are making and the work that you're doing. Yeah, nonpartisan. It's about connecting. It's about honoring this voice that we have in our democracy that is so critical. I'll be candid. I don't have a particular plan in mind for that. It's not I'm working on advising and technology integration. But as this work gets closer, as election time comes around, let's partner. Let's figure out how we make that visible. How do we leverage the communities of practice that we have? Right. I'm a fan of psychologist work. Her name is Beverly Daniel Tatum, and she talks about spheres of influence, and it's really around diversity and inclusion kinds of conversations, but insert your whatever it is you want to think about, and it works, right? So it's who's in your immediate sphere, who's in your next sphere, and who's here. The good news is I'm a vice provost now. I have a bigger sphere. I have a broader reach than I've ever had, and I want to use that in a way that's complementary to the goals that students have, right? Let's help each other in elevating those things going forward. So don't have a plan, but we can create one. Sound a little bit like Elizabeth Warren, though, the backside of Elizabeth Warren, although I understand she's now stepped out of the race. But so I don't have a plan. It's the anti-Elizabeth Warren, but we can make one, if that makes sense.
Any further questions? Senator King.
Yeah, I love that you just, like Elizabeth Warren, yes. Anywho.
Not partisan, but.
Sure. Again, I just want to say thank you for coming. Like, I feel like this conversation we've had tonight, as far as from students and administration, has been one of the best that we've had this year. But my main question is, what is the difference between your office and student life? Because I feel like sometimes a lot of students get those two confused because they sound kind of similar. But just kind of your take as what you feel that those is the difference.
So student success often appears in a student life arena. I report to the provost. The provost and the vice president for student life co-lead our strategic enrollment management effort. So we are in the same room a lot. We are partnering a lot, but there are different sort of just organizational practices, if you will. My alignment is probably 80% in the academic, meaning the colleges, the curriculum, the things that I think can move the lever on student success are going to be both in the classroom and out of the classroom. So I will be, because of where I'm positioned, I will be doing much more work on thinking about curriculum, policy, DFW rates, advising, all the things that traditionally at K-State have been a part of the academic affairs functions. My background is both in academic affairs. I've been a faculty member and in student affairs. My master's degree is in higher education administration and student affairs. So I've been a career counselor. I've done work in those spaces. So I understand and value the expertise that our student life colleagues have. And the learning that happens outside the classroom is powerful and real. And we want to make sure we leverage those perspectives as well. So we're different in that we have different sort of functional areas we're responsible for. I don't have responsibility for housing and residence life. I don't have responsibility for conduct. I'm not a part of student organization, livelihood and support. But we connect with one another because that kind of learning that happens is in that sense of engagement and that sense of support, right? The work that the Student Life Office does for students of concern, for accessibility, for special student interest groups, for our diversity inclusion efforts are all very real. So what I hope happens is that we forget which organization we're a part of and that we're K-State. We're moving to a different chapter where we're all one university, and those particular branches are far less meaningful. Yeah, but I get to play. I'm playing in the academic space a little bit more. That's the main distinction. Yeah.
Any further questions? All right, seeing none, thank you so much for coming. With that, we'll now move into approval of the minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes? Senator Beasley.
I move we approve the minutes. Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes. Are there any objections? All right, seeing none, moving into announcements for the week. First is a reminder to complete your campus climate survey by tomorrow, and please encourage others to do the same. Announcements 2 through 4 I'll touch on in my director's reports, but wanted them to be sent out to everyone's emails. Proxies for the weeks are Bond for Betancourt, Carlson for Ward, Glasscock for Hamlin, Hines for Dowd, Orzakowski for Al-Abdullah, Pelton for Kirperin, Payton for Seidel, Spellman for Clark, and Wallace for Ward Kelly. SGA members of the week are the members of the Senate Operations Committee for their commitment to detail when editing 23 pieces of legislation this week, and an extra shout out to parliamentarian Max Harmon for his commitment to advancing the goals of Senate operations and playing an active role in Student Senate each week. The quote of the week is, "There is virtue in work and there is virtue in rest. Use both and overlook neither." Alan Cohen. Moving forward, we'll go on to commendations. Is there a motion to consider Resolution 70? Senator Beasley.
I move we consider Resolution 70.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to consider Resolution 70. Will the author please come forward?
All right, this is Resolution 1920-70, commendation to Dr. Linda Yarrow by Brent Carlson and Shaylin Ward. Whereas Dr. Linda Yarrow is currently an assistant professor in the Department of Food, Nutrition, Dietetics, and Health in the College of Health and Human Sciences. Whereas Dr. Yarrow was recently recognized as Professor of the Week at the January 29th, 2020 Kansas State University men's basketball home game versus Oklahoma. Whereas Dr. Yarrow has been a full-time professor at Kansas State University since 2009, during which she has taught both upper-level medical nutrition therapy courses and graduate nutrition courses. Whereas Dr. Yarrow has received numerous awards, including the 2019 Myers-Alford Teaching Award, the 2019 Global Campus Excellence and Online Teaching Award, K-State Mortarboard Outstanding Faculty Recognition, the SID-LIT Innovation in Teaching Award, and the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics Innovator in Practice and Education Award. Whereas Dr. Yarrow has also been a speaker for Spotlight K-State, the Big 12 Teaching and Learning Conference, and the Global Campus Have a Bite series, and where Dr. Yarrow actively advocates for the education of students at Kansas State University and further helps to guide teaching advances in the nutritional sciences. Be it enacted that Section 1 Kansas State University Student Governing Association commends Dr. Linda Yarrow for her recent Professor of the Week award and for her 11 years of outstanding service to the College of Health and Human Sciences and Kansas State University. Section 2, upon passage by the Student Senate and signature of the Student Body President, a copy of this resolution shall be sent to Dr. Linda Yarrow, the Food, Nutrition, Dietetics, and Health Department Head Mark Hobb, Dean of the College of Health and Human Sciences John Buckwalter, and University President Richard B. Myers. Any questions?
Are there any questions or corrections for the author? All right, seeing none, is there a motion to approve Resolution 70? Chair Watkins.
I move we approve Resolution 70 unanimously.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve Resolution 70 unanimously. Are there any objections? Seeing none, Resolution 70 is approved. With that, is there a motion to consider Resolution 72? Senator Oxner.
I move we consider Resolution 72. Second.
It's been moved and seconded to consider Resolution 72. Will the author please come forward?
Good evening, everyone. Resolution 192072, commendation to BSU and DMSA's 7th Annual Black Student Union Leadership Conference by Natalia Rodriguez, Kara Bruce, and Brenda Hurd. Whereas, on February 11, 2020, the Black Student Union at Kansas State University and the Diversity and Multicultural Student Affairs Office hosted the 7th Annual Black Student Union Leadership Conference. Whereas the BSU Leadership Conference is designed to empower high school and community college students by building leadership, self-efficacy, college-going intent, and bringing awareness to social and political issues. Whereas students had the opportunity to attend several sessions taught by K-State faculty and students who touched on issues like higher education, the principle of Umoja, student advocacy, and more. And whereas this year's event had over 500 students attend from over 20 high schools and colleges. Be it resolved that Section 1, Kansas State University Student Governing Association commends Black Student Union at Kansas State University and the Diversity and Multicultural Student Affairs Office leadership for their ongoing efforts and commitment to bring together high school and college students to learn about higher education. Section 2, upon passage by the Student Senate and signature of the student body president, a copy of this resolution shall be sent to Commandre Taylor, the SU president, Adrian Rodriguez, Associate Vice President for Student Life of Diversity and Multicultural Student Affairs, Murtish Chavez, Director for Multicultural Programs and Services, Tremaine Lindsay Jr., Director of Diversity and Multicultural Student Life, Caitlin Wells, Project Coordinator, and University President Richard B. Myers.
Are there any questions or corrections for the author? All right, seeing none, is there a motion to approve Resolution 72? Senator Beasley.
I move we approve Resolution 72 unanimously. Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve Resolution 72 unanimously. Are there any objections? Seeing none, Resolution 72 is approved. That will move into committee reports. Are there any committee chairs who would like to give a report? Chair Watkins.
Everybody, so yesterday morning I'd have a conversation with the president of KU, and we were looking to have a competition between K-State and KU for the census, with the goal of getting as many students at both of our universities to complete the census. As I've talked about in previous meetings throughout the year, census is extremely important because a lot of money is appropriated to Kansas and our universities specifically based off how many people fill out the census and say that they go to school here. So we decided that between March 18th and April 8th, we're going to have a competition between both of our schools. The census has a website that can monitor how many people in each city fill out the census. And we're going to use that as kind of a metrics to measure how many people fill out the census. And whichever university loses, the losing university is going to have to sing. Sorry to tell you that, guys, this, but hopefully this is a motivation. Whatever university loses is going to have to sing the winning university's fight song in Senate. Yeah, so we're not going to lose. That's the motivation here. Give me a second here. Basically, what we're going to do is we have a social media campaign that we're going to associate with this competition, but we are all, as senators, going to do our duty to inform the people that we represent to fill out the census. Everybody's going to get something in the mail. They fill it out, and then that's how you do it. But as long as we have a higher percentage of people within the community fill it out, we'll win. Yeah, so I'll take any questions.
Any questions? Senator Coker.
So just to make sure, this isn't a higher number of total people that fill out the census, it's percentage.
Yeah, so that was a big thing in our consideration of doing this. But unfortunately, the census website has an ability to look into cities, but they don't have any metrics to look into the university specifically. So it's going to be Manhattan versus Lawrence. And so the most fair way that we could think of doing this was to just take the percentage of the population of Manhattan versus the percentage of the population in Lawrence. So, and I think that's pretty fair.
Further questions? Caucus Leader Spelman.
Knowing that KU has their SGA elections on April 15th and 16th, after the competition has concluded, does that mean that the new Senate term for our SGA would be singing the fight song and their current SGA would be singing our fight song?
Yes.
We're not
But that's no excuse to not advocate as much as you can to win.
It's like when companies sign deals.
Further questions? Legislative or Director Brown.
For students who might have living in Manhattan and have a home address, where should we expect our census to be sent to?
So the census says that you should fill out and say that you live wherever you live the majority of the time. So if you are a student at K-State and have a residence, even if you consider it to be a temporary residence in Manhattan, you are here most likely more than you are in Lawrence, so you would say that you live here.
Really quick, I'll give a reminder too, if you're living in organized living, such, or specifically a fraternity or a sorority, the president is responsible for sending in the information.
Yeah,
And residence halls as well.
I can kind of speak more to that. So this really specifically speaks to students who live off campus, because if you do live in a dorm, that information is given by the university to the Census Bureau. And if you live in a fraternity and sorority, that more falls under IFC or PHC.
Further questions?
Can I just add on to that real quick? So since you're already being counted, make sure your parents are gonna count you, wherever they live, because you don't want people counted twice in two different places.
Further questions? Coordinator Colburn.
Is it where you are going to live in 2020, if I'm graduating, and I'm going to live in majority, or just in the past year of my life, where do I spend majority of my time?
It's in the past, 12 months of your life. So, yeah.
Further questions? Senator Snyder.
What incentives do we have in place to vote, to register?
To fill out the census. I think so, and that's kind of why we did this competition. The incentive is obviously as student senators, I really don't want to sing KU's fight song, but hopefully we can inspire into every K-State family member that we don't want the people who represent us to have to sing that song. I'm gonna be biting my lips the whole time. But so the incentive is really fill it out because we don't want to lose. It's not really if I win, we're going to get anything.
Furthermore, the incentive is getting money for the city of Manhattan, where we spend our time, the infrastructure unit. So it's internal good. Senator Beasley.
So would we like to coordinate something to send a musical help over to Lawrence to help them sing the fight song in the form of instruments?
I think that's an amazing idea.
I would gladly take my mellophone with me into the business, but I think a drum line would help.
I will say the conversation I had with Tiara, who's the president of KU, we never set a date for when they have to sing that song. So once we win, I would say that we'll have plenty of time to get, K-State band and orchestra ready. They have plenty of time to tune their instruments. We'll send them to Lawrence, and then they can be there to accompany them. And they also, like us, live stream all their meetings. So we'll be able to watch live in Senate while they sing our fight song.
Further questions, Senator Coleman.
Will government relations be doing anything to help encourage the K-State populace or registering for the census?
Yes, absolutely. So we're doing a couple things. First of all, we have a census week between March 23rd and 27th, so that week. And we're going to be tabling in a different spot on the K-State campus every day during that. So we'll be engaging students in all the different colleges while we're doing that. And then also we have a social media campaign that we're working on. That will be sent out to you guys. Obviously, so the 18th is the Wednesday that we get back from spring break, so that's that first Wednesday. And before that date, I'll send an email of a couple different graphics that we're just working on designing right now. That'll get sent out to all you guys, and so we'll start a social media campaign that on different dates, you guys at your discretion will be able to post these pictures and encourage your friends and other people that you know to post these photos. So it'll be a mix between a grassroots effort from tabling and a social media effort to do that. Yeah.
Time for questions has expired. Is there a motion to extend? All right, seeing none. Further committee chair reports. Chair Booth.
All right, this will be real quick, but I was at the meeting on Sunday with Haley and the other elections committee members. So we talked about our opinions on the current elections and the changes that we all may want to make. And she started planning on the elections report that's due to Senate Ops. So that's good. And then Senate Ops on Thursday discussed the bill, the instant round of voting bill, for about an hour and a half and made significant changes, which I'll explain once we get to that. And then I've also met quite a bit with IT about Top Hat, so I'll do an update on that during second open period if everyone is okay with that. So.
Any questions for Chair Booth? All right, seeing none, further committee chair reports. Directors reports. Elections Commissioner Spellman.
Hi y'all. I don't have a very long update tonight, but for everyone that was a candidate in the recent election, you would have gotten an email from me asking for feedback. It's just a Google survey. It'll take about 5-ish minutes depending on how much you have to say. But I'm going to take all of that feedback and put it into my Elections Commissioner report for Senate Ops. In addition, the week after spring break, I will have a more formalized report. I will be giving a presentation to you on, I think it's the 19th, the week after spring break that we get back. But if you have any questions or any feedback, suggestions, even if you weren't a candidate, I can always send you the Google survey. But I would strongly encourage to fill out that survey. That's all I got.
Questions, Chair Booth.
Can you remind us when the survey is due?
I don't have a deadline for the survey, but as soon as possible.
Okay.
Further questions? All right, seeing none. Further directors reports. Director Brown.
Hi guys, so we're going to be doing a little bit of a presentation over Big 12 on the Hill, and while that's getting pulled up, I just wanted to give an update on Higher Education Day. So the week after spring break on March 19th, legislative advocates and the exec team will be going to Topeka to advocate for affordability and mental health. And then as well as something that exciting that happened today is one of the other legislative directors at Fort Hays State University, Katie, has been focusing on affirmative consent. That's one of our platforms we're working on. And today a bill was introduced in the House for an affirmative consent bill that states that universities, post-secondary education universities in Kansas, if they don't have proper statutes saying that yes means yes, prevention of sexual assault and stalking and things like that, they will not get state funding. So that's a really exciting advancement. Yes. Katie's worked really hard on that, so it's a really exciting advancement to see hey, some of the student initiatives we're doing are really having a payoff in the legislature. So with that, we will get started. So last week was Big 12 on the Hill. This is where all of the Big 12 universities, student leaders get together to advocate for issues in higher education. This is a picture of the team that went, and then that is us with Representative Watkins.
Yeah, so we had a great time at this conference, and we had a great pleasure of planning it on behalf of the 10 conference member schools. Madison did incredible work of getting meetings with legislators in the blink of an eye. I call her the Queen of Congress now, so if anybody asks, she's in charge. Overall, we had a great deal of programming. On Sunday, we had position roundtables with our respective positions at other institutions. On Monday, Lacey Pitts spoke. That was great to have her. And then we began advocating and platform training. We learned a lot from other institutions. What some of you might not know is that other institutions have a very heavy investment in Congress compared to Kansas State University, although we still do very well in Congress. Many institutions like Texas Tech and the Texas University systems have their own lobbying firms in Washington, D.C., and have lobbyists that live in Washington and lobby on their behalf. Kansas State University does not have that. We have Dr. Peterson in the president's office who does all of that for us by herself, and she does incredible work on her own, and she's one of the most respected people in her field in the Big 12. But just to put that in perspective, there are institutions in our own conference that have interest in Washington, even the University of Kansas does. We then set out randomized groups. What we did is we took every member and randomized them, so when they were meeting with a member of Congress, they were not with their own institutions, they were with other mixed groups. And we went a little off these white pages, which I'll let Madison go over those a little bit later. On Tuesday, we had the Big 12 meetings, 24 meetings totals with members of Congress. All of them went very great, very well, very respected members of Congress on Republicans and Democrats alike. All of them were very good. On Wednesday, we met with Kansas Senate and House offices, and I'll touch on that a bit. I'm going to let Madison talk about a little bit what we had our teams talk about with members of Congress.
Yeah, so the people that we met with were going to be the health and education committees. So all of the members that we were meeting with had some sort of influence on voting on higher education legislation directly in committee. This is one of the first pages of the white pages that we gave out. So every member that we met with, we handed a white page, which essentially had our platforms, a rundown of the information that we were discussing, as well as some statistics just to help share the story. And then this is some of the materials that we gave out. Shout out to the amazing Sadie Polson for her design on all of that. She did a great job of making sure we looked professional, and all of it was really nice looking. So for the part that I think is the coolest thing that we got to talk about is our platforms. So we looked at affordability and mental health. And so affordability, it's really looking at making sure whenever students are taking out loans, they know what types of loans they're going to be taking out, and making sure that that information is transparent and easy to understand. For mental health, we really looked at making sure conversations of mental health were being pushed forward, as well as there was accurate and concise information for universities to use whenever they're creating their resources for students. So some of the specific bills, the Know Before You Owe bill, this is going to make sure that every quarter, whether students are making a payment or not on their loan, they're receiving information such as the principal amount, how much interest is being accrued, how much they've paid on the principal, how much they've paid on the interest. This is really important, especially for students who won't be paying their loans off till the end, that they're getting that kind of reminder of what they will be owing, and that they're very in the know of all of that information, as well as making sure that Pell Grants maintain above inflation. If you receive the maximum Pell Grant, that's going to cover about 28% of your tuition, fees, and room and board, and that has been decreasing a lot. And with college obviously increasing, really the standard that we can ask is that Pell Grants are at least matched for inflation. So obviously wanting an increase in that in general, but the Sustainability Act we were focusing on was for inflation specifically. And then the College Affordability Act, this one's kind of a beast and a really big joint piece with a lot of bills in it, but we're mostly focusing on its aspects and language surrounding affordability and just access to higher education for students. So for mental health, this one is going to focus on creating a committee that focuses on allowing, basically creating data and making sure that universities know the information about their students. Universities aren't able to create proper mental health resources and action plans if they don't know how their current students on campus are feeling. So one of the great things that K-State is doing right now is partnering with the JED Foundation to kind of create a comprehensive plan for that. But this is a federal action that's going to make sure that universities have the correct resources, as well as just a little bit of influence in making sure that higher education is really focusing on mental health and getting some extra federal support on continuing to have those conversations. So this is us meeting with representatives, and I will let Noah talk about Kansas Day.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, the last day we were in Washington, D.C., we spent with the University of Kansas, and just representing the two schools on behalf with every member or their respective staff in Congress. So that's Representative Watkins, who represents Topeka, And then in that region, Congressman Marshall, who represents the 1st District, which is Manhattan all the way to the western border, Representative Estes, who represents the Wichita region, and then Representative Sharice Davids, so my mind, who represents the Johnson County region. We also met with staff from Senator Moran's office and Senator Roberts' office. That is us and Senator Moran's office has a buffalo in it. It's kind of cool, but yeah. Okay, we can go to the next slide. So on Kansas Day, we mainly focus on mental health, affordability, and a big part of what we talked about with the members is food insecurity. Obviously, we have CATS covered here at K-State. That is a great initiative, and I can say from being around the other conference member schools, K-State is really leading the way in food insecurity and trying to tackle that issue. We are definitely on the forefront of that, and we are definitely ahead of the game quite a bit. And in fact, some members of Congress were even impressed with the work that we're doing right here at K-State as a model for other institutions around the country. We also talked about implementing SNAP and making that more well known to students and their rights that they have when it comes to SNAP benefits. Not a lot of students are aware that they are eligible for SNAP benefits. A lot of universities don't inform them of that. So essentially what we're looking for in HR 4297 is that is something that most likely, frankly, won't pass. Just because it's an election year, Congress, the makeup of Congress this year, it's just not going to happen. And a lot of that has to go through the Farm Bill. For those of you that know me, I know a lot about the Farm Bill, unfortunately. So we were encouraging members of Congress essentially to take that language and put it in the next Farm Bill. Unfortunately, the Farm Bill is supposed to be passed every 2 years, but we all know how Congress works, so it'll probably take another 4 to 8. So those meetings went great, a lot of receptive information, and we also learned a lot from what KU is doing, and KU learned a lot from us, vice versa. Overall, I'd like to just add that Madison did a lot of great work making this all happen, and I'd like to just say that being around other schools in the Big 12 really shows us just how far ahead of the game K-State is in a lot of aspects. I know we say it a lot, but I say it very seriously when I say that K-State is very ahead of the ball on a lot of issues, on a lot of subjects, and is leading the way in a number of avenues. So,
Are there any questions for our speakers? All right, seeing none, are there any other directors' reports? President Penny.
Something that I definitely wanted to add, especially on the Big 12 on the Hill, so it doesn't go unrecognized, is Madison did the work what should have been like 4 or 5 months of work in a matter of 4 weeks, and so really applause to Madison for doing that. And with that being said, I know we have a lot on our agenda, so I'm going to run through a list really quick, and I'll take any questions after that. Today, we met with the Real Estate Advisory Committee for the KSU Student Foundation. They laid out some of the plans that are coming forward, and we will have opportunities later in the semester for student feedback on that. Today, I also signed a memorandum of understanding with KSU Athletics, because as you know, we broke our contract this year because we did not sell enough student tickets. So now we will have an MOU on a yearly basis. So the MOU that I signed today states that there will be no changes to seating, no changes to all of these typical things that were in our previous contract that these students did not hold up our end. You should have gotten an email from me on Tuesday with the resolution for the commitment to uphold our inclusive and welcoming community, so that got sent out to all students. We met on Monday with the KSU Unite Steering Committee. A lot of feedback has been taken from the Spirit program, as well as a lot of student surveys, and we are going to be making a lot of adjustments to what KSU Unite looks like based on all of that. So we are looking forward to seeing what goes on there. And one more plug to take the campus climate survey if you haven't already. That comes from Dr. Samuel. E-scooters. The company that is awarded is called Zagster, and we're going to have Link scooters. So the app is called Link. The company that controls Link is called Zagster, and they are actually only in one other community, and it's in Florida. There were a whole slew of reasons that we chose Zagster to be that company, but the city of Manhattan, I believe tonight, is going to finally pass their own contract. So we're both signed on to that same contract, but it just became public this week. And then lastly, All In for K-State has just launched. That's something that Ollie and I helped choose back in December, and it's on open educational resources, and they're kind of branding it as Textbooks 2.0. So you should be seeing a lot of that on your social media, and All In Day will be on March 25th. So we'll be giving you updates to kind of push that on your social media then. And then lastly, a big shout out to especially Jordan Keel with the work that she's done for open educational resources with a student advisory committee under Kansas Board of Regents last year, because so much of the progress and what went into that application was because of Jordan and her work, and I want to recognize that as well. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Questions for President Penny. Senator Hines.
Yeah, what color will the e-scooters be? Do we know that?
Yeah, the scooters are like, to my understanding, like a matte gray.
Further questions? Chair Watkins.
Going back to the memorandum of understanding that you signed with KSAT, based off of your conversations with athletics, do they view the breach of contract to be the fault of K-State students, or more of a broad issue with a decline in enrollment?
No, Brett, who's the director of fan experience, and then Gene as well. They're both very understanding. And when Ollie and I and Dalton went into that meeting, we had all of our stats too, looking at how it really kind of shows with the decreasing enrollment, there's been a decrease of ticket sales, and so they also understand that entire aspect as well. So they understand a lot more aspects play into that, and it's just not students not being engaged, or they understand that full view too. And they really wanted to express it as well, that they need students there, and they want students on their side, and they want SGA on their side. And I think they know if they were to do things that would make SGA or students upset, they would hear about it, and that's not good for their program and for the fan experience as a whole too. So this was our best opportunity to move forward in the most positive way, and I think the MOU that we assigned for this year, nothing will change, but it does set us up for success in the future.
Further questions? Chair Booth.
So are these MOUs going to continue for the foreseeable future, or are there indications that we will sign another contract at some point? Or what's the situation for the future?
K-State Athletics is not interested in signing another long-term contract. The reason being, they want to be able to be flexible in some of the changes that they are making to enhance that fan experience. So I know when I say that first off, and when they told us that, it's very easy to react to that, thinking okay, after a year, they want to be able to just move us into the corner of Bramlage, or do big changes like that, and that's not the intent of it at all. They just want more leeway, so that they don't have to break their end of the contract on some of those issues as well. I do not foresee us ever moving from some of our prominent spots for football and basketball, and they do not see that happening in the future as well.
Further questions? Senator Coger.
From my understanding, student dollars actually went into the funding of Bramlage after athletics ran out of money, when they built Bramlage. So can you speak to the legality of if they were to move us in Bramlage, would they could do? I don't think that was a good question, but
yeah, no.
Do you know if that's actually a thing? I'm pretty sure it was within the contracts that the student dollars help pay for Bramlage, so we can't be moved within Bramlage.
Yeah, the only thing that I know of is the contract that was signed at, when students were still putting in a lot of money from the privilege fee to athletics. That is the only contract that I know of that legally binded us to those seats. I do not know of another contract in that, Cameron. Yeah, Nathan.
Yeah, so Cameron, to answer your question, part of the privilege fee went to athletics until 2017, and it was a signed agreement with them that we'd have those seats. We terminated that contract in 2017, but then created just the agreement Jansen was referencing earlier, that we would just get those seats as long as we continued to enroll. So we had an agreement with them that if they'd moved us, they would have broken, but no more. That makes sense. A bit of a history lesson.
Further questions? All right, seeing none, I have a director's report. after some of the presentations we've seen today, mine's by far the worst. But basically just going through some of the announcements in more detail. So the second announcement from the agenda today is about applications. So currently the applications for Senate Exec, SGA Treasurer, Intern Coordinators, Communications Director, and I will say it, listed on the agenda, the application for judicial is there as well. Definitely forgot it making this presentation. But the applications for the ones listed up on the screen close on April 10th, 2020 at 11:59 p.m. Now, historically, the interviews take place like 2 days later for those, but this year it'll be 9 days later because of Easter Sunday being that same day and the number of conflicts that have been ran into. There is the potential, once we get like all the leadership together, that April 10th could be extended back a little bit, but if you aim for April 10th, I can promise it's not going to move up forward. Next, the SGA banquet is coming up as we approach the end of the term. The date for that will be March 26th at 5:30 p.m., so before Senate. If you haven't attended that before, it's just, you know, we kind of like take time to celebrate the end of the term, going into our final Senate meeting of the term, recognizing people for different awards, our leadership, and just any progress that's been made throughout the year. If you're interested in helping planning the SGA banquet, please reach out to me. I told this to Ollie when he criticized food choices. If you're going to have an opinion, get on the planning committee. And with that too, previously we've voted as all of SGA on Senator of the Year. After some feedback from different individuals, we are changing that. We're going to do a test run of a nomination process for that. So there's currently a nomination form available on Org Central and in the agenda. That has the nomination form. It's really easy. It just asks like, who are you nominating, and like, how have they demonstrated a commitment to and maximizing the student experience through shared governance or something like that. So just brag on them, paragraph. And then the legislative branch leadership that serves on Senate Exec, unless they're nominated, will select those after a Senate Exec meeting. If you have any questions about that process, feel free to come talk to me. And then next, I wanted to throw out a reminder too, this kind of coinciding with applications. Definitely start like reaching out to people if you aspire to have their position next term or even someday. I did want to give some reminders of Speaker and Pro Tem specifically. Those elections are the first and second Senate of the term, which this year is April 2nd and April 9th. And I also wanted to remind people about changes to the standing rules. So compared to years previous, we voted to amend our standing rules not to allow for the distribution of campaign materials for your election. So pamphlet, anything tangible. So as you're planning to make that run, which I hope many of you do, be sure to keep it all in presentation format up here and in your networking with other individuals in Senate. And a reminder as well, you'll have 10 minutes to speak for either position. With Speaker, where it's split 2 weeks, you'll have a 5-minute recap on that second date, April 9th. And then lastly, moving into caucus time. So today in college caucus time, we will be selecting your academic competition team committee members. This applies to every college needs to appoint one representative. We, being me and Jansen, didn't have much in way of people who preference academic competition teams when we did university-wide forms. So I believe we have like 4 and have to pick 3 at-large students. So academic competition team members are primarily going to come from student senators and interns. I included the meeting dates up here because you probably shouldn't volunteer yourself to serve on the committee if you're unavailable at these times. The timeline for this being completed is very tight. So mentally mark that down, and I can't wait to come back and hear who all will be serving on academic competition teams. So with that, we're going to go ahead and move 2, college caucus time, reconvening at 9:04. Break. Side note 2, College of Vet Med and grad students hang out.
Idiot. Idiot. Yeah, I am gonna be the tallest student in the city. Idiot. She said I can't do that, so I don't think I
Go to the joint? Put your I know we don't have that. Don't go to I know. Me personally. Somebody tells me I have to go find it. Yeah, I'm bringing you. Wait, no, hang on. What are you doing? Right now? I'm the one. Yeah, unless we want to like choose another student to get involved. Right. I just think we could ask about so you could get her back to work. Yeah, I still have her number. I might not be the one she wants to take a phone call from. So. Yeah, I think you weren't promoting me. Still okay, yeah.
send them.
It's here for your board fun day. That's exactly what mine looks like.
Yeah. Bill, everyone has like a scrap of paper they're gonna hold on to for like 3 years. No, because like after I made mine, they were like, oh wait, the social studies default.
That's awesome.
I like went in and
I lost. I wanted to buy. A joint allocation. It takes CPR. I like this.
let's do it. Yeah, isn't there like a extra credit out? Look at that.
That's the only way to work.
Mine's a paper.
We allocate you only 20. You can take that one. No, I'm not supposed to get that. It's offered as a credit out. Oh, that's right. It's only like 2 days. But yeah, it's a full credit hour.
I thought about this is expensive.
That or boxing, yeah. Anyway, I do see this. We should have a caucus meeting. What's your schedule? I need 1 hour. I can actually go. Actually, I can take like 19 points. No, but at this point it's too late. I can't join any classes.
Otherwise, I'll send it to the group and I'll say one of you people or not.
So you're asking how
Congratulations. Oh, yeah.
I just missed the first round.
Yeah, I was on there twice.
Now that we have this time, you guys have a long time. Okay, and we have some ideas we'd like to run by. Yeah. I was going to ask you guys. I was wondering if you guys there would be just possibly I could do it tomorrow. Or do it how I could do the 19th.
Oh,
Those are my slides.
yeah. I mean, I'm sure the great.
I think I can. Just if someone questions, I can show up in the middle and say, what the heck? Like, how did you not notice that my name is Sam?
But I think personally.
She's like, what?
No.
Call me Mr. I would be a oh, that's
We just throw money in.
No one will do it, I will do it as well.
I don't know. I just cordially invited.
Are we allowed to like
So you have party location. Allocation. Yeah, what was the location? It has not been given.
I'll have to double check it. You're basically not scratch. So
I would go with.
I mean, that's a primary. I guess you could rewrite it.
that anymore because we're out of money, baby. How long have you been working video games? Yeah. Don't worry, I should have exactly.
Well, first it was like Maggie actually. Yes.
She wrote her name, so she got one. She gave one people and like she's already been trying to do this stuff. See how things go. But we're trying to get her.
Oh yeah, I work with Misters too.
All right, students, please start finding your seats. All right, who was selected for a College of Ed's representative? Oh, okay. Perfect.
So we're gonna have Andrea Bruna as our main. If she doesn't respond in time, Maggie will be our alternate.
Thank you. Right, we'll keep moving with the agenda then. So minor allocations, is there a motion to approve the minor allocations? Senator Coleman.
I move we approve minor allocations. Second.
So moved and seconded to approve the minor allocations. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. The minor allocations are approved. Moving into final action, will the author of Bill 100 please come forward? Have any changes been made?
Yes, one moment. All right. So on line, where's it at? Yeah. So on line 133, we struck number 4, which is work on off-campus housing, affordable housing initiatives. And the purpose of that is that we don't want to silo that initiative to this position, considering that in previous years, local relations has worked a lot on that initiative, and that can be up to the discretion of whichever administration is in office at that time. Did we also strike 5? We also struck 5 for the same reason. And then we kind of decided both those initiatives would be great for the director to work on, but as far as legislating the position goes, we want to keep it pretty basic on what their like core duties are and leave it pretty flexible. And then on line 142 on number 2 for the sexual assault prevention and awareness director, wait, this isn't updated. Yeah, it's not. So yours must be good, but it says shall be, it's not good. Okay, we'll fix it later, but on the real copy it says shall be appointed by the student body president to the President's Commission on the Status of Women, which among other duties works to prevent sexual violence and harassment on campus. And the point of changing that language is that we don't want this piece of legislation to like tell the committee what to do, but we're telling the student body president, who is supposed to appoint cabinet members to this position, to appoint this specific position. So just a minor detail, but wanted to make sure the wording was perfect there. But that's it for changes.
Right, you have first right to debate.
Yeah, so vote yes. I think this will be a great change. We just want to make sure that both of these positions are written in our bylaws so that the committees they're in charge of and the review processes they're in charge of will be maintained as stated in the legislation.
Are there any questions for our speaker? Right, seeing none, is there any debate in the negative? Any debate in the positive? Any debate at all? Right, seeing none, we'll proceed to a roll call vote on Bill 100.
Al Abdullah. Al Madani. Sorry, just a reminder, please remember your proxies and take a check if you're a proxy for someone, just because I know we're down some people tonight. Let's see.
Yes, by proxy.
Okay. Beasley.
Yes.
Belina.
Yes.
Betancourt.
Yes, by proxy.
Bond.
Yes.
Booz.
Yes.
Bowers. Brentsey. Burke.
Yes.
Carlson.
Yes.
Carr. Clark.
Yes, by proxy.
Clements.
Yes.
Coggeshall.
Yes.
Colasico. Cruz. Dowd.
Yes, by proxy.
Frederick.
Yes.
Gallardo. Gillespie.
Yes.
Glasscock.
Yes.
Hamlin.
Yes, by proxy.
Hines.
Yes.
Huffman.
Yes.
Jabin.
Yes.
Jonak. Kelly.
Yes.
Yes,
Kerperin.
by proxy.
Kidd.
Yes.
King.
Yes.
Koger.
Yes.
Kurzweil. Coleman.
Yes.
Lomshek.
Yes.
Lux.
Yes.
Matos. Meinhardt. Moore.
Yes.
Oxner.
Yes.
Orzakowski.
Yes.
Pelton. Payton.
Yes, by proxy.
Phillips.
Yes.
Rivera. Rodriguez.
Yes.
Reichert.
Yes.
Seidel.
Yes.
Slichter. Smith.
Yeah.
Snyder Ben.
Yep.
Snyder Blaine. Spellman.
Yes.
Wallace. Ward Kelly. Ward Shalin.
Yes.
Watkins.
Yes.
Whitmer.
Yes.
And Zimmerman. And the bill passes 37 to 0 to 0.
All right, will the author of Bill 101 please come forward? Have any changes been made?
Yeah, so on line 1, can we change it to FY 2021? I'm really bad at fiscal years, so yeah.
Friendly amendment. You have first right to debate.
All right, awesome. So this is just the allocations of the sports club funds. So yeah, there's not much to say here. Just we allocated close to a little over $62,000. Yeah, so vote yes and go sports.
Any questions? Right, seeing none, is there any debate in the negative? Any debate at all? Right, seeing none, we'll proceed to a roll call vote on Bill 101.
Al Abdullah.
Yes, by proxy.
Al Madani. Beasley.
Yeah.
Belina. Betancourt.
Yes, by proxy.
Bond. Booz.
Yes.
Bowers. Brentsey. Burke.
Yes.
Carlson.
Yes.
Carr. Clark.
Yes, by proxy.
Clements.
Yes.
Coggeshall.
Yes.
Colasico. Cruz. Dowd.
Yes, by proxy.
Frederick.
Yes.
Gallardo. Gillespie.
Yes.
Glasscock.
Yes.
Hamlin. Hines.
Yeah. Oh, abstain. It's abstain.
Huffman.
Yes.
Jabin.
Yes.
Jonak. Kelly.
Yes.
Kerperin.
Yes, by proxy.
Kidd.
Yes.
King.
Yes.
Koger.
Yes.
Kurzweil. Coleman.
Yes.
Lomshek.
Yes.
Lux.
Yes.
Matos, Meinhardt, Moore,
Yes.
Oxner,
Yes.
Orzakowski,
Yes.
Pelton,
Yes.
Payton,
Yes, by proxy.
Phillips,
Yes.
Rivera, Rodriguez,
Yes.
Reichert,
Yes.
Seidel,
Yes.
Slichter, Smith,
Yeah.
Snyder Ben,
Abstain.
Snyder Blaine, Spellman,
Yes.
Wallace, Ward Kelly, Ward Shalin,
Yes.
Watkins,
Yes.
Whitmer,
Whitmer?
Yes.
and Zimmerman. Bill passes 40-0-2.
With that, will the author of Resolution 69 please come forward? Have any changes been made?
Yeah, quite a few changes have been made, so I'll go through them one by one. So we added a new third whereas clause that reads, whereas elections regulations reform began with Resolution 18-1949, which called upon Student Senate to discover the most equitable process for conducting and regulating elections. We struck the last explanation of IRV clause and added three new whereas clauses. So we struck IRV uses these rankings to calculate simulate a series of elections, and added whereas if no single candidate receives a majority of votes using each voter's single highest preference, then the candidate who receives the fewest number of highest preferences is eliminated. Whereas if a voter's highest choice is eliminated, only then is their next highest choice counted. And whereas this process continues until one candidate wins a majority. We also added right before IRV is also increasingly used by student governments, governing associations. We added whereas IRV is increasingly used by state and local governments, including the state of Maine. We added, and then we changed some of the wording in we changed the wording in the last whereas clause to remove a reference to just a generic it, as well as in the third to last whereas clause. And then in section 1, we changed it from, believing that we should implement to recommends that a future KSU SGA legislative branch should create an implementation plan regarding instant runoff voting. And then we struck the old section 2 and replaced it with section 2. KSU SGA requests that the KSU Information Technology Department provide information regarding estimated costs and timeframes for implementation of an instant runoff voting system.
Any questions? Right, seeing none, you have first right to debate.
All right, thank you for having me today. Almost 1 year ago, we passed Resolution 18-1949, which, as referenced in the resolution, required us to regard our governing documents and find out what is the most equitable method of conducting our elections. Today, I come before you for that reason, to find and propose a more equitable method, or at least one I believe is so. And I came for the same reason I came here last week. Last week, I may not have been as prepared as I should have been, but hopefully throughout this debate, I hope to show that I've rectified that, and I have more information than I did, and that it supports instant runoff voting. So I want to go through 3 things today. First, a description of what exactly this resolution does and does not commit SGA to. Second, a description of the instant runoff voting process, and exactly how it works, and just so that we're on the same page. And third, a short glimpse into my research over the past week, the amount that I have done of the experiences of other colleges when they have implemented instant runoff voting. So let's begin with a description of what exactly this resolution commits us to. Now, in the whereas clauses, as I read last week and this week, really what it does, what it says is threefold. First, it explains what the system of IRV is, which I'll get to on my second point as well. Second, it explains why it is a better system than the current system we have. And third, it explains why we are passing a resolution and not a bill. In other words, it will take over a year for IT, at least with my current information, to implement this, so it doesn't make sense to pass a bill in the first place. And the active clauses also do 3 things. They're a recommendation to future KSU SGA legislative branches that we should implement this voting system, and we should create a plan to do it, not necessarily do it like right now. Second, it also requests the necessary data that we will need from IT, and this acts as authorization to get that data, not start that work. And third, it asks future Senates to consider a third-party alternative for our elections if our IT cannot implement it in 2 years, basically. And so third, I want to say specifically that this does not bind us to implementing IRV no matter what. We will vote on the bylaws changes and the statutes changes to make that change. So this is not a end-all be-all, we're doing this. So second, I want to just nail down exactly what the process of IRV is, just so everyone knows what that process is. So counting begins after all the voters have ranked their choices and submitted their ballots. The first round of counting counts only the first choices of the voters. It doesn't count any second or third choices until later. If no one wins a majority, the candidate with the least first choice preferences is eliminated and is not considered in subsequent rounds of counting. The ballots that had that person as their first choice candidate are then redistributed to those voters' next highest choices. This continues until someone has a majority. So for instance, IRV does not count anyone's lower choices except when their highest choices are eliminated. So it doesn't make sense to say, hey, vote for these people as your second and third choice because they're weaker, because that they would be eliminated presumably before your first choice would be eliminated. And then third, I want to go into some experiences of other colleges, of things that I've researched. So I had limited time this week, so I only researched 4 out of 10, the 10 universities we had identified and sent emails to originally. Oregon State, UT Austin, Auburn, and Minnesota. I want to share my research into 2 of those today. First is Oregon State, where their newspaper.
Time.
Yep.
Time for the speaker has expired. Senator Hines.
I move to extend the speaker's time by 5 minutes. Second.
It's been moved and seconded to extend the speaker's time by 5 minutes. Are there any objections? Seeing none.
Thank you. Okay, yeah. First is Oregon State, where their student newspaper, the Daily Barometer, reported in 2010 that only about 1,000 students were voting in their SGA elections. Now, they hadn't finished the elections yet, but I'd estimate that less than 2,000 students, based on the timing of that article, actually voted in their presidential election. In November 2013, their assistant to the advocate, Jacob Vanderveer, publicized a proposal for instant runoff voting, and they implemented it before the 2014 elections. In April 2014, they had record turnout in their first election after their implementation, with 3,389 votes for president. And in February 2020, they released their non-presidential election results with 3,931 votes, which is actually about 13% of their voter turnout. That's higher than average for them, but lower than the previous 2 years, which means that they've had a consistent 3-year streak of better voter turnout than they had before IRV. And they're actually announcing presidential results relatively soon, so I'll be keeping an eye on that. The second one is the University of Texas at Austin. According to Fair Vote, which is a nonpartisan reform organization, they approved an amendment to their constitution in March of 2018 to implement instant runoff voting with 78% of the vote of their public. Now, they did this because some communities felt alienated from their representatives, and they hoped IRV would promote fair representation for their students. They also had runoff elections for president and vice president beforehand, and they felt that was a hassle for students, and those runoffs typically had lower voter turnout. And then in February 2020, so far they have 9 different candidates for president and vice president. One campaign was disqualified because of their infractions of the mass solicitation policy, and they're actually announcing results tomorrow. So I'll also be looking at that. I'm sad that they don't have results yet, but we'll take what we can get. So there are limited data points, but there are things that you can string together. And it's actually very clear in Oregon's case that this was a major benefit to their elections. So in conclusion, I discussed how what this resolution does, what IRV precisely does, as well as other experiences in other colleges. While there isn't that many data points, there are some, and what there is positive. 1 year ago, we passed this resolution to challenge KSU SGA to do better. And I sincerely believe that this would be doing better. Several of the authors in that resolution are in this room tonight, and I challenge you to seriously consider this resolution. Unlike the last Senate, this time we can take a step forward. Other colleges have led the way. It's been positive for them. Will we follow? That's up to you. Thank you, and I'll try to answer any questions you may have.
Questions for the speaker, Senator Hines.
Yeah, so the data, is there anything that shows that this is a direct causation, or that the correlation is an actual causation, or was there anything like enrollment spikes at the same time, Gordon State?
Yeah, so I was using percentage figures, so that would have taken into account enrollment spikes. As far as causation versus correlation, I can't precisely tell you because the school paper is not doing statistical analyses. But I mean, it is clear that they have had a consistent increase in voter participation since they implemented this.
Further questions? All right, seeing none, is there any debate in the negative? Debate in the positive? Any debate at all? Right, seeing none, we'll proceed to a voice vote on Resolution 69. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Right, motion carries, Resolution 69 passes. No.
It's not a combination.
Moving into introduction of minor allocations, is there a motion to consider the minor allocations? Senator Oxner.
I move we consider the minor allocations. Second.
It's been moved and seconded to consider the minor allocations. Bill 102 requested 250, recommended 250. 103 requested 300, recommended 300. 104 requested 800, recommended 800. 105 requested 70, recommended 70. 106 requested 630, recommended 630. 107 requested 200, recommended 200. 108 requested 460, recommended 460. 109 requested 850, recommended 850. Bill 110 requested 500, recommended 400. Moving in, are there any questions about the minor allocations? There's a lot of them. Right, moving into introduction of legislation, is there a motion to consider Bill 111? Chair Booth.
I move to allow the authors of bills 111 through 123 to summarize.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to allow the authors of.
Sorry, I missed this. Why are there two international coordinating council?
Yeah, different dates.
Yeah, two different requests.
Cool. Thank you.
There's a current motion to allow the authors of bills 111 through 123 to summarize. Are there any objections? Second, are there any objections? Seeing none, all of our upcoming bill authors can summarize. Is there a motion to consider Bill 111? Senator Beasley.
I move we consider Bill 111. Second.
It's been moved and seconded to consider Bill 111. Will the author please come forward?
Evening, Student Senate. All right, so this is on the adjustment of the Student Governing Association privilege fee. And so this bill really has two parts. The first one actually regarding the allocation to SGA, and the second part regarding internal audit. So going on the first one, so our allocation to Student Governing Association goes towards the scholarship and compensation that we give to officers as recommended or set by JCOC, Joint Committee on Officer Compensation. These monies also go towards each branch in their programmatic functions, member travel as required, the intern program, annual elections, and promotions of SGA. So just looking at a majority of what this fund goes towards is actually set by JCOC. So we're kind of building the rest of it around that. And then the other part of it is that the SGA treasurer is the one who actually comes in and recommends these amounts for the next year. So he came in this year with a presentation requesting a decrease of the allocations. So fiscal year 18 was 71,000, fiscal year 19 was 73, and fiscal year 20 was 77. He came and requested a decrease to 68,000, 69,000, and 70,000 for the next 3 years. And so we felt that these were appropriate while still ensuring that we can support the functions of SGA as far as the programmatic functions, elections, different internal functions of SGA. And we felt that was a good decrease to be had there. The second part of this bill is regarding internal audit. And so this is something that we discussed when we were going through CSI earlier in this term. So in the transition away from OSAS to CSI, internal audit was moved out of the contract, and we had to determine where we wanted to put that. So after going through a few ideas, such as giving it its own line item, some other bills that we could put it in, we determined that the best location was within the SGA allocation bill. And so basically, internal audit, what these monies that we allocate to them go towards is that we're paying them for their service of auditing privilege fee entities on behalf of students. And that's kind of one of the main reasons why I felt like it fit the best within SGA, is that since we're kind of purchasing their services on behalf of students to ensure that their money is being handled properly, we felt like it fit mostly in SGA's allocation and not in any other privilege fee entity contract or its own line item. And yeah, and so that's why in just kind of a quick look over, it looks like this is a increase of SGA, but really it's just a decrease of the actual allocation to SGA and a transfer of what was allocated to CSI over into this contract. Questions? Please ask questions.
Questions for the author, Chair Booth.
I feel like I should have known this before. This is kind of a complicated question. So the officer compensation is $53,838 for 1 year. 54,724 for the next year, and then 55,638 for that year. The treasurer request was so 68,338. So that's about 15,000 increase. Then 69,324, which keeps that 24, and then 73,338, which would be an increase of $200 off of the JCOG allocation compared to the other years. Why is that?
Not sure I quite follow you there. So
yeah. Okay, yeah, I'll ask you later. Because I'm not sure.
So I mean, part of that, Andrew. So part of that, raise is specifically in relation to the expected increases in tuition and stuff. So it's the projections that when they worked on JCOG, Larry Mader gave projections for what that should be. So that's why there's a raise there. But I think it's an extra 200 that final year, correct?
Yeah.
That's what you're noticing?
Which isn't going to the salaries, it's just in our general allocation.
Yeah. That we'll need to talk about later. Okay. We'll raise that in Privy next week. So
okay.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Further questions?
Come on now.
All right, seeing none, is there a motion to consider Bill 112? Caucus Leader Glasgow.
I move to consider B112.
It's been moved and seconded to consider Bill 112. Will the author please come forward? Chair Booth.
May I move to consider all legislation for the rest of the night?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
It's been moved and seconded to consider all remaining legislation in intro for tonight. Are there any objections? Senator Coker.
I need to go up to all the rest are travel allocations and then one random Cameron bill.
No.
This is John Just in
Just hang
order,
on.
we wouldn't have to say, I consider each thing every time.
Will the author of Bill 112 please come forward?
Surprise, surprise, I am not Carson. Good to hear from a different voice tonight. All right. Bill 112 is the travel allocation to the paintball team. They made their national tournament, so they are going to Kissimmee, Florida to compete in the National Collegiate Paintball Association tournament. In April, they requested $800 and we recommended $800.
Are there any questions? All right, seeing none, will the author of Bill 113 please come forward?
Almost.
All right. The Children's and Adolescent Literature Community, or CHALK, came and presented to us on Sunday, and they're primarily composed of English and education majors on campus, and they want to host author Zetta Elliott to come speak on behalf of her work in children's literature and the children's literature community. She's considered an expert, especially in that area and in emerging diverse children's literature. So, yeah.
Are there any questions for the author? All right, seeing none, Bill 114.
And then some representatives from Fraternity and Sorority Life Ambassadors came, and they're looking to host Archie Messersmith Bunting, who is a director of health and safety for the North American Interfraternity Conference, but she works a lot with diagnosing and mental health prevention, and wants to provide an informational presentation on depression and mental health related issues to campus and a campus-wide event in the union.
Are there any questions or corrections? All right, seeing none, Bill 115.
All right, so this is the travel allocation to the Bassoon Club. They are going to the International Double Reed Society Festival in June, which is going to be in Iowa City. They're going to showcase their musical talent and learn about world-renowned bassoonists. They requested $1,000 or recommended $1,000, and I think we need to put 115 on it.
Any questions or corrections? Right, seeing none, Bill 116.
All right, this is the travel allocation to the Feed Science Club. They're sending 15 students to go on a couple of industry visits in Iowa in April, and so this is going to give them an opportunity to kind of experience just like the actual industry and see grain handling equipment and apply what they've learned in class. And so they requested $1,200 and we recommended $800.
Questions? Chair Booth?
Did I get George, Iowa correct?
Yes, they're both in Iowa.
Okay.
Yes.
It originally said Georgia, so I wanted to make
Oh, yeah, it's George and Des Moines, Iowa. Yes, you are correct.
Granted.
Let's see. Yeah, why was the recommendation 800 instead of 1,000?
Yeah, so actually we ran out of funding from travel allocations, and so we had to make some cuts. So yeah, that actually is really exciting news. And we just decided that I think they had some other funding opportunities, and they're also just going for like a short period of time, and so it was just, we had to cut somewhere, and it just happened to be them. So.
Right, thank you.
Further questions? All right, seeing none, 117.
This is the travel allocation to the Milling Science Club. They are going to a conference called the International Association of Operative Millers conference in Oregon in April. And this is going to allow them to meet industry professionals, learn about milling equipment. And they requested $2,000 and we recommended $800.
there any questions? All right, seeing none.
All right. This Bill 118 is travel allocation to the Prairie Fire Printmakers. So they are a printmaking group on campus. They're going to a conference called Embracing the Wild in Boulder, Colorado. They're going to both present some of their new innovative techniques and then also learn different things from people, and they'll get to just see different printmaking techniques and bring them back to campus. They requested $1,000 and we recommended $1,000.
Questions for the author? All right, seeing none. 19.
All right, travel allocation to Sigma Lambda Gamma. They are going to their national convention in Iowa City this summer. They're going to learn leadership skills, personal development skills as well, learning about how to have effective philanthropy. They requested $1,000 and we recommended $700.
Questions for the author? Seeing none. 120.
All right, this is the travel allocation to Voice. They are sending one of their members to the Western Regional Iverson Bell Summit in Washington this April. They're going to learn about diversity and inclusion, wellness, and how to incorporate that into the veterinary field. And they requested $1,025 and we recommended $100.
Questions? Chair Booth.
Yeah, and Carson was going to update the account names. Is he just, or have you just?
Hannah has the
I just
information, it
got
just
it.
hasn't been updated yet.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, thanks.
Other questions? All right, seeing none. 121.
Okay, 121 is the travel allocation to the American Society of Agricultural and Biological Engineers. They are going to their national conference in Omaha, Nebraska this summer, sending 10 students. They're going to learn about emerging technology and also present all research at this conference. And they requested $1,000. We recommended $1,000.
Questions? All right, seeing none. Intern Bill.
Thank you, sorry. You mentioned that there was starting to be a lack of funding, and I noticed that the organizations that were recommended 800 had a greater number of students in the same amount of days, or at least a similar amount of days to this organization, as well as the Prairie Fire Printmakers. I was wondering just like your rationale behind which entities get less.
Yeah, so one thing that we look for a lot in travel allocation is educational value. And so a lot of that is based on what they present when they come and speak with us. And so a lot of times, so I think we only had to cut a total of $400 overall. And Blake wants to speak as well, but I will just continue to say that the ones that we cut, there's educational value obviously in all of these trips, and I think that some of them we just thought had a stronger argument for educational value than others. And the rest of my committee also wants to speak, so Blake, go ahead.
Yeah, point of information, so all the ones that we recommended 1,000 for, those are fiscal year 2021, not for fiscal year 20. So we were able to allocate the full amount on those without, we allocated money that we don't have yet, but yeah, so we weren't restrained to the same budget.
Yes, thank you. So yeah, that's a difference too, like he said, 2020 we were out of funds, but 2021 we have our full budget, and so that's why 2021 you're seeing allocation of more money.
Thank you both.
Further questions? All right, seeing none. 122.
122 is a travel allocation. Also, yeah, some of these don't have the fiscal year, so maybe that's part of the confusion, but 122 is the travel allocation to plant breeding and genetics. They are sending 10 students to National Association of Plant Breeding annual meeting in Lincoln, Nebraska. They're going to learn about technology in their field, current advancements, and they're also all presenting either a poster or an oral presentation. They requested $1,000 and we recommended $1,000.
Any questions? And that was actually 123. Can you go back to dance marathon?
Oh yeah, sorry. There we go. Can't forget dance marathon. Okay, so that was 123. Dance marathon was 122. Yeah. Okay. So Dance Marathon is sending 2 delegates to their leadership conference in Atlanta, Georgia this summer. They're going to learn how to lead their organization and continue to increase the size and involvement in Dance Marathon in the future. They requested $1,000 and we're recommending $200.
Questions? All right, seeing none, will the author of Resolution 73 please come forward? Senator Koger.
Resolution 19/2073, recommendation to create Campus Recycling Day by Cameron Koger. Whereas on Thursday, February 6, 2020, Bill Spiegel presented to the Student Governing Association Student Senate to explain the importance of recycling. Whereas Kansas State University is the premier recycling institution in the Big 12 Conference, capturing the title Big 12 Recycle Mania Champion in 4 of the past 5 years, with results from this year's Recycle Mania to be announced soon. Whereas additional steps can be taken to make Kansas State as eco-friendly as possible. Whereas creating a campus-wide recycling day is a way for Kansas State as an institution to promote a sustainable climate on campus. Whereas sustainability is crucial to our mission as a land-grant university. Whereas Fake Patty's Day is a regional holiday that attracts thousands of visitors to Manhattan annually. Whereas much of the waste that is created from Fake Patty's Day is not removed in an eco-friendly manner. And whereas creation of a recycling day to encourage proper disposal of waste can be a good way to counteract some of the negative effects of Fake Patty's Day, be it resolved that starting Monday, March 23rd, 2020, and repeating on an annual basis of the first Monday following Fake Patty's Day, Kansas State University will recognize Campus Recycling Day to encourage recycling on campus. Section 2. Upon passage by the Student Senate and signature of the Student Body President, a copy of this resolution will be sent to University President Richard B. Meyer, Director of Recycling Bill Spiegel, and Science Guy Bill Nye.
Right, are there any questions for the author? Or corrections? Yeah, Senator Beasley.
So, love this bill, and my question is not a joke, or at least not trying to be a joke. So, as far as like infrastructure for this idea, what did you have in mind for, like, what's the actual recycling component like?
So I think it has the potential to start out as a mere idea. This year it could just be as simple as encouraging students to take their waste that they generate from Fake Patty's Day and recycle it on campus. But I think as time continues and with support from initiatives on campus, it could become something as like a day to drive recycling on campus.
Follow-up granted.
Just briefly, could it be a thing that we bring large recycling bins or recycling dumpsters onto campus to be used as receptacles?
You know, it could. It absolutely could.
Okay, further questions? Chair Watkins.
Given the amount of time between when this bill will pass and like when Fake Patty's Day is, when the next Monday will be, do you think that we have the opportunity to actually do it?
I think that the success of the initial Campus Recycling Day can be I really think that the success doesn't have to be like astounding numbers of recycled material, but just promoting awareness and then giving a platform to build on in the upcoming year.
Follow-up granted.
So, what would be the ability, given the time frame, for us to actually increase awareness to do this?
I think first off, the student body sees, or at least some of the student bodies see the resolutions that passed, and they're going to see a commitment to creating a more sustainable university at Kansas State. And then second off, I think they're going to see a continued commitment to better the sustainability here at Kansas State.
Further questions? Chair Booz.
Could we strike the word title on line 10? So it would just read capturing the Big 12 Recycling Championship.
I think we could, yes.
Further questions? Senator Snyder.
Have you considered putting this on your Twitter?
I believe this is an initiative that would have a lot of merit. So yeah, I probably could promote through social media.
Further questions? Senator Phillips.
Could we maybe like add that it would be emailed out to all the students?
Yeah, I think that would be feasible. It would be an avenue that we could look into, and I think with the reference to the legislation, that could be something that the committee could evaluate adding to the bill.
Further questions? Coordinator Colburn.
Do you think that the first recycling day could be an opportunity to recognize work that on-campus groups are already doing after Fake Patty's Day cleanups?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of avenues that they can go to not only recognize the outstanding work that Bill and other campus groups are working towards, but also, like, again, promoting just more to be done.
Further questions? Senator Beasley.
Would we have to consider amnesty for, not paraphernalia, bottles that would be brought onto campus following Big Patty's Day to be recycled?
In my experience, I've never saw anyone get carded as they go to recycle.
Further questions? Intern Phillips.
More of a point of information, I guess. Would it be in the best interest regarding like time frame to certify the special orders a bill?
I'm gonna say, yeah, I'll let Hannah answer.
Can I say something like, just a suggestion, a question to your question? Would it be possible to recognize the work of all of our student efforts for campus recycling following Fake Patty's Day without having a resolution passed? That would be my line of thought.
If like this should just be a commendation and not like a yearly occurrence?
Can we take the initiative on starting to pass, or starting the action items associated with this now without having the resolution pass until after spring break?
Well, it wouldn't pass until after
There was a question about
Special order.
That's a good point, that's a good point.
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Further questions? Chair Booz.
Could we certify it before the 23rd, since we will pass it on the 19th?
To answer that, I usually get things certified on like Friday and Saturday after they're done. So like if it passes in Senate on Thursday night, like it's typically done. It's typically done by the Sunday. It's usually only if I'm like swamped, but I'm caught up on stuff now, so I'm not.
Further questions? Senator Kelly.
Karen, first of all, thank you so much for this resolution.
Yeah.
It's great. I guess my question is, like, given, you know, what you want to do here, what we want to do here, and, like, you know, spread the word about sustainability, like, on this day specifically, like, would it be your preference to pass it tonight or to pass it after spring break? Like, what would be more effective in your mind?
I am a firm believer in the due diligence of Senate. I feel referring it to committee give avenues for other students, considering I myself wrote this with not a lot of others' input. I think it would be pertinent to get other students' opinion based off a reference or legislation and kind of see where it leads to in final action.
Time for questions has expired. Is there a motion to extend? Chair Booz.
I'd move to extend the speaker's time for questions by 5 minutes. Second.
It's been moved and seconded to extend time for questions by 5 minutes. Are there any objections? Seeing none, are there any further questions? Chair Booz.
Do you think that it's necessary to send this to Bill Nye Science Guy?
Mr. Science Guy would be an esteemed member of the community. I don't necessarily think that would be pertinent to like mail it to him, but we could use digital means of getting the legislation to him, just for the sake of Nathan.
All right.
Further questions? All right, seeing none, we will move into second open period. Are there any second open period speakers? Chair Booz.
All right, I'll try to make this quick because I know everyone wants to get out of here. But I wanted to update you all on the response to the resolution on costly educational platforms. So I've had several meetings over the past 2 weeks with IT especially, but also with the Faculty Senate Committee on Technology. That was on Tuesday. And really what we're working on right now is creating a joint faculty-student task force to, to create a report and survey faculty. So survey faculty as to what they're currently using, and then create a report with recommendations on maybe what we should centralize and buy centrally, or maybe what we should try to steer faculty away from using, all that, and have more concrete recommendations. And so that'll be an equal amount of students and equal amount of faculty. And like really, it just seems like and it ended up being the right time to submit and pass that resolution, because I think the response to it has been one of the biggest responses that like everyone keeps saying it's been a really big response, and that's due to the time frame and not due to the authors. Yeah, if anyone has any questions about that, I'm going to try to give updates as we move forward, but they may not have too much information in them. But
All right, questions for Chair Booz? Senator Frederick, did you have a question? Oh, sorry. Further second open period. Senator Coleman.
Okay, guys, I have two. One is a lot quicker, and in relation to Cameron's legislation, and that is going to raise everyone's awareness, and I'll raise everyone's awareness for it next week too. But Hands On K-State actually holds a Fake Patty's Day cleanup the Sunday after Fake Patty's Day from 9 to 12 that you can go and sign up to on their website. So, if you guys want to, have a day early to go and get started on that, there's an opportunity. But the other reason I wanted to come up here was about last Friday, myself, Lily, and Vedant had the opportunity to go to Billy's class and hold a test poll for the student perception poll that I've been kind of like working with DEI on. And I just want to say that the results we got from that were great, and they were what I was expecting, and I was very pumped to see how we got those results. And we got excellent feedback from the class as well, and I can't thank Billy enough for giving us the opportunity. But with that being said, the week after spring break, I am intending to hold this poll on campus, and it's going to be, the real deal. But what I'm here before you to ask about is I'm looking for people to come and be pollsters with me and come around and asking people. And this doesn't have to be like hours at a time. This can be 30 minutes of your time out of your day to go around and ask people on campus some very basic and simple questions about what their perception of student government is. And so I'd really look for people to come talk to me or email me at treyk@ksu.edu. I hope we have plenty of people to come help with that.
Questions for Senator Coleman? Senator Beasley.
If it's all right and ethical, can you give us talk to us about the feedback you've been given so far?
Are you looking for more like feedback that the students are giving back, or what the results were from this poll? Both. Okay, so with the results from the poll, we had 32 responses from this class to start off with the first question, I'll keep it succinct. But like, for example, the first question was, do you know who the student body president is? And we left it open to say the current student body president or the newly elected one, because this occurred after the elections. 87% or 28 of the students said no. And 4 students or 12% said yes. Another example is, do you know some of the things student government manages? 17 of those 32 students said no, and 15 said yes. Do you know how many branches there are on student government? 22 said no, 10 said yes. Those are examples and kind of a general trend that the purpose of this poll is meant to be, is to raise awareness for what is the perception, how many students actually know about us and what we do and what role we play, and how $16 million of their dollars goes through this chamber. And some things that some of the feedback we got was about transparency of funding, and also about like being more making a greater outreach efforts. Basically, is the big idea here is off-campus and residence hall outreach. They talked about newsletters or using social media newsletters, and they talked about having ways to connect to your senator or your representative via like the SGA website, among other things. And I'm sure we'll have even more feedback as we continue on. Any
Right.
questions?
Questions? Intern Bilbin.
Thank you for your work on this, first off. Also, do people who sign up to, give the poll or whatever, do they have the opportunity to answer questions that students might have, or would you just prefer this to be a polling situation?
That's a great question. What I'm intending to do is to also have, with people who are going to go out and poll, to have tiny little TLDR papers that give like quick facts about SGA, and like maybe a QR code or maybe 2 QR codes on the back to give them access to even more information. But if you have more information that you'd like to deliver to students, feel free. Yeah.
Further questions? Chair Watkins.
Have you discussed like who's going to pay for the printing of those handouts at all?
At the moment, it was going to be me, but that is something that I'll probably look into. But yeah. Okay.
Further questions? All right, seeing none, further second open period. Caucus Leader Spelman.
Okay, one more final announcement, and it's about voting. This is a Wildcats vote update, so nothing to do with SGA. But as I made an announcement a few weeks ago, I am currently in the planning process of organizing the first ever Kansas Voter Registration Day. That is going to be held on Tuesday, April 14th, and I'm absolutely thrilled to have other K-Board institutions on board. I have had phone calls with KU, Wichita State. I had a phone call with Washburn. Everyone but ESU is currently on board. So we have most of the K-Board institutions currently planning their own voter registration drive on the 14th of April, which is so cool. I'm so excited. Big thing that I need from you all, there's a couple people I've already talked to, Ashlyn being one of them, is that I'm really going to need volunteers on the day of. So in previous voter registration drives, we've had anywhere about 50 volunteers sign up for this event. I've had 8 locations on campus in the past. I'm hopefully wanting to expand to at least 10 or more. So if you are interested in 1, setting up a table on campus, 2, hosting a table and volunteering, please let me know. I will be reaching out to everyone through the Wildcats Vote Org Central group message platform in the next couple weeks. But planning for that is now in full swing. So we are about a month away from that. I stand for questions.
Any questions? Right, seeing none, further second open period. Coordinator Colburn.
Just 2 quick points of information. One, the hands-on includes breakfast and lunch. So, lots of perks. And second is that If any of you are planning to vote in the presidential primary for the Democrats, they're going to be using IRB.
Yeah.
So you can experience it firsthand. We'll get to see firsthand how it works. Hopefully lots of students who want to get to see what that process looks like. So it won't just be us first in Kansas. There are there are higher governmental institutions that are using IRB, and we will not be the first, should you all choose to do so later. But
Further questions? Or any questions? Further second open period? Senator Oxner.
All right, you might remember my last open period speech from last year. I promise this isn't as fiery as what happened last year. As I've been able to reflect this past week on what's been going on in SGA and over my time here at K-State, and it's all been really great. But with that, I would like to formally just inform everyone that I am resigning from my Senate seat effective tonight. That means my work with other things is probably going to cease here soon too. The reasoning for that, for those of you that are personally close to me, you know the health issues that I've encountered over the past year. Recently we found out another one, and it's going to require some surgery, so I'm going to be out for a while. With that, there's no room for me, obviously, to be doing much of anything for the next once that surgery completes. So with that, I would just like to personally thank everyone for their time and their work and dedication over the years. And as I depart, I would just like to remind you, there are a lot of things we spend a lot of time on here. We argue a lot about a lot of things. And I'd just like you to remember that there are a lot of students outside of this chamber that frankly don't know or don't give a shit about what we do in here. And that's fine. But we have to remember that we represent them and that we spend their money and that we do a lot of important things. So always remember to keep your constituents in mind and always just remember what you're doing. And I'd also like you to remember in the grand scheme of things, sometimes we argue about a lot of hot subjects in here that some people don't know about, they don't care about. And that's fine that we care about them in here, but I'd encourage you just never to take them personally. And always remember that have the best interest of the university and the students in mind. With that, it's been great working with all of you. I look forward to seeing you all on campus. I'll be back. Don't worry, I'm not going anywhere. So thanks.
Any further second open period speakers? Yeah, Cal.
So I just want to, give everyone a heads up. The university just released a new coronavirus updates website all in one place. Check it out. While you're out traveling for the spring break, please be conscious of your travels and where you're going. Please don't bring anything back with you to Manhattan. I appreciate it if someone who's not traveling. And make sure that you're taking care of yourselves, make smart decisions over break, remember to have fun, and I would love to hear all your stories when you come back. Just make sure they're good. Have fun.
Your attorney general recommended I tell you all, quote, don't get arrested over break. For reference of legislation tonight, Bill 111 will be referred to Privy, Bills 112 and then 115 through 123 referred to travel, 113 and 114 to OCAC, and Resolution 73 to exec. For second roll call, Nate's laptop just died, so here's what we're going to do. If you are a voting member in Senate, raise your right hand. This is like speed round attendance, so no talking to people, pay attention. You will lower your hand when I call your name. Booz, Kidd, Burke, Ward, Carlson, Bond, Huffman, Smith, Phillips, Snyder, Glasscock, Coleman, Spellman, Clements, Seidel, Cogshell, Watkins, Beasley, Oxner, Hines, Pelton, Whitmer, Reichert, Koger, King, Jabin, Lux, Belina, Lomchek, Orzakowski, Rodriguez, Galipsy, Kelly, Moore, Frederick. Did I miss anybody? All right, seeing none, I'll now be seeking a motion to adjourn. Senator Beasley.
I move to adjourn.
It's been moved and seconded to adjourn. Any objections? Seeing none, this meeting.
After we listen to Sarah, I don't Wait, why did I not? Yeah. It was okay, you like that. So that's really no, I just straight up my high school wanted to say like they let me use GMOs like I just broke it up. I talked about international trade and I literally couldn't help it. But I had to turn it at full. Okay. Alan, what do you see now?
Play football player, right?
How do you know? Your sources are full of. I'm the chair of the committee and I don't right? No, I feel like it's over. I work hard on
Elizabeth Sturgis.
I'm starting to run out of names. I recognize.
I don't think anybody from this team is on the team.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, I'm in ECD.
You know what makes me mad? Your source just makes me mad.
I'm sorry. I don't.
Tyler hasn't updated the Dropbox. Oh, well, maybe like
I really don't remember who it was from.
Ethan May from Pitt. Like, someone heard it. Okay, I was gonna say, I think that somebody heard it from
Dad, is our student oatmeal by and I want to know what way to record it. I never heard
Hold on.
Yeah, you're right. I would. I like how I could because I really enjoy. You saw the live trailer. No, I actually was sad. Listen, if you would provide better feedback than I would give you. And I am better at teaching someone. Not that I'm big at teaching, but I can teach and I know the stuff. I think you are over. That's my problem. I will. First option is
March 21st.
Like free healthcare. It's not free.
Well, no, okay, that depends. You know what kind of time we're having a tongue, early?
I mean, it would go into the
It got over we're having a tongue reunion party. We're having a high school reunion party.
I do?
But there'll be that, and then there will be a second. Marcus, should it
As long as it's not the first weekend of April.
Okay, cool. I'll keep you on the list.
Anything.
Marcus, are you okay?
Are you okay? That's guys, I'm kind of
Other than that, like, mention stuff.
I'm pretty sure.
Oh yeah, I remember seeing you. It was terrible.
Very small.
That Josh is very
You honestly know.
interviews also. I've been interviews all day, so I'm like.
Just because I had my own things to worry about. That was all.
Yeah, for a mission interpreter.
Really? Cool.
All day, all day of emails with people like,
Like I never
or like advisors that I know.
remember I made
Last year,
I know.
come on, you know, and I know people really well. We will see you.
I will.
Because I'm getting, or I got an internship this summer, so, yeah, right, and they're cutting my. Exactly, yeah.
I don't care.
Sure.
Oh, the people that you're gonna ask are okay.
I know, yeah, so
So
that's fine.
you can,
Stupid budget cuts.
so you have people that really don't care.
Okay, I'll keep you in mind. Thank you, sir. Have a good evening, gentlemen.
See you.
I'm not.
You too.
It's good.
Like, spread it out. We just say, isn't it? We just say like, oh, it's recycling day. Everybody's like, well, it's recycling day. And we're like, yeah, exactly.
Yes,
That's all they all are. We just like make up a day. We're like, today is heart card day.
There's probably a day for it.
There's the national day for like we should have special ordered it. Have a good night.
You too, Marcus.
Are you gonna do this next year?
I don't think so. At least not parliamentary. Yeah.
Shucks, you're such a good one though.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It
You've been
really
so
is fun.
active, yeah.
I really do enjoy it.
You're killing it.
It's a good spot for me. I just don't. I've contributed as much as I can to the role, and the role has contributed as much as it can to me.
Yeah.
So one more year, I would feel stagnant.
I feel you. How's SAV stuff? Can I ask?
Yeah, definitely. It's all right. It's definitely like it's still like so I'm finishing up like one whole year. So
That's true. Yeah.
yeah, so it's fun to like have seen like everything. It feels I'm trying to like find. I think overall we just need to get things narrowed down to and bring things back to a more central mission, bring things back to a more central purpose.
Right.
It just feels like there's a lot of programs that aren't really super connected across the board.
Inch deep, mile wide, kind of sort of.
Yes, exactly. I actually loved DYA involvement more than I thought. Both of them this year were really cool. But yeah, Keaton got like a case award, I think, for like student organization president. So
Good.
that's really cool.
Well, good.
Yeah, no, it's definitely going. I hope we just had interviews, so lots of good. It looked like still a good pool of candidates.
How many people did we select?
It's low, so we're trying to cut numbers down. Get a more invested pool of people. I think we selected 10.
Okay.
Yeah, 10 or 9. So, yep, it's really cool. But
Well, good. I miss you guys.
we definitely miss you
I
too.
really do. I really, really do. So, but I think you're great. So
Thank you so much.
If
You as
feel so
well.
inclined to do this again, we'd love to have you.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Have a good night. Have a great spring break.
Thank you. You too, Marcus.
Do you need help cleaning up any?